Welcome to the September 9, 25 meeting of the Flathead Reservation Water Management Board. Let's adopt the agenda. So any comments, questions, changes to the agenda? None, we'll approve it. No comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as listed.
Motion by Roger. I'll second. Second by Ken, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have the agenda to you. Any prior, Georgia, would you mind, please?
Let's pray. Dear Lord, we just want to take this opportunity this afternoon to come together to serve our community as a board. And we thank you for that opportunity. And we also thank you for the community that we serve. We just ask that as we move through our agenda today, that we be guided with wisdom, discretion, and gratitude for this opportunity. Grateful for each person here and for those that may be joining in a different way. And all this we ask in your name.
Okay, reading minutes. So we have meeting minutes. Announced meeting minutes. Anyone interested? The past minutes are on the Flathead Reservation watermanagementboard.gov website. So attendance, please.
Blake Matt,
Here.
Roger Noble,
Here.
George McLeod,
Here.
Ken Pitt,
Here.
Jordan Smith, here.
And did anyone make contact with the feds? I didn't see about it, the federal rep.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I'll have a letter for you to review. I did get the point, the contact for the regional office, so I'll have a letter for you to review at the end of the week.
Thank you. Any conflicts of interest on this agenda, potential, Georgia? Ken? Roger? George?
Yeah.
And none here, thank you. Meeting minutes of 8/28/25, please. Comments? changes? Good. Can make a motion? All right. Matt,
Oh, I move to approve minutes from 14/25.
motion by Ken,
I'll second.
second by George, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Well, we did. Thank you. Public comments for items not on the agenda, so any members of the public in the audience, if you have a comment, please step up and give us your name. Give us your comment, anybody online?
No problem.
No public online, so. Seeing no public to comment. Water policy and procedures, council and water engineer, so. Go for it.
All right, Mr. Chairman, board members, I'll kick things off. That's all right.
Yep.
First item on the agenda is to give you a quick update. We've organized 4 intensive meeting sessions towards the permit and change work group. And everybody's looking forward to moving policy or getting together the state tribes to draft some policy that for the board's consideration that will help to clarify policies and procedures for new permits and changes of existing water rights. There's 4 3-hour meetings on the schedule. That includes the attendance of 2 board members that are on the committee. No. And with that, I don't know, would either of the board members on the committee like to offer any things? Yeah. Mr. Chairman, do you have any questions or shall I move on to 3.2?
3.1, any other comments or?
Do we have set times for these meetings?
Yes, sir. Yeah, those are on the meeting invitations, and I'll do my best to send out a tip reminder.
Okay, thank you.
So wonderful.
Wonderful.
In the documentation
Yeah,
for that,
yeah.
for them to review? Is that what's in the packet here?
Mr. Chairman, board members, the packet information is a different set of policies and procedures for your consideration today that are covering different items, not including permits and changes.
Fine. And was that, George, is that what you said? You'll do that?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? At this point? No. Thank you,
Oh,
George.
excuse me now, better clarify it for me.
I was just trying to clarify myself, so we're talking about 3.1, and I think Ethan was looking for a board member to participate.
Oh, Mr. Chairman,
That's the permitted.
I was announcing the 2 board members that are participating.
Oh.
I've got the-
My apologies, sir, if I wasn't clear.
Oh, okay. And those 2 members are, because I didn't hear.
McLeod and Noble.
Oh, okay. Very good, all right, yes, 3.2.
Excellent, Mr. Chairman, board members. 3.2 is kind of a cleanup of policy that you have passed in the past. PASSED first and PAST second. And, I'll give you a quick overview to try to give you a reminder, but, the, Montana, Department of Environmental Quality had within its administrative rules, rules that included, a mandate for them to look at water right information, that would be associated with any new subdivision applications. And that water right information, I'm paraphrasing, of course, would be either supplied by the Montana DNRC or a board that governs and administers water in the area, which was in specific reference to this board. Then some occurrences happened in the courtroom regarding the state's approach to permit exceptions for subdivisions. There was a ruling made that caused the state to need to reevaluate the way that they had looked at assessing the maximum annual volumes associated with combined appropriations. And subsequently, the state sort of put a pause on any issuances of the way that they had used to do things, and then the Montana DEQ removed that section from their administrative rules. Okay, now how does that affect you? We did in fact create a policy that would allow us to interact with the Montana DEQ in fulfillment of their mandate to get verification about whether a subdivision that is being proposed has a legitimate water right or has the ability to obtain a legitimate water right. And since you as a board did a great job, you issued some excellent policies, but they no longer apply because the administrative rule for which they were written is it's now been modified, and the section that required this Montana DEQ water right verification step is gone. So in lockstep, I guess, we thought it prudent to remove that section from your existing policies and procedures. So the entire proposed action here is to line strike all of WPMP 10-104 water right verification for DEQ subdivision applications pursuant Administrative Rule of Montana 17.36.103.
Discussion, questions?
So can someone remind me what that section, what the verbiage is there, what got deleted?
The deletion was that the requirement that DEQ obtain information that verifies a water right for a proposed subdivision, either from Montana DNRC or, in the case of the Flathead Indian Reservation, a board that governs water rights. And forgive me, I don't have it right in front of me,
That's
but that's the gist of
Okay.
what was stricken. And
Thank you.
so now the requirement is gone, and we can't really fulfill the request, through that administrative rule. So we should get rid of these policies also.
Gotcha.
Any legal input on that?
I think, anything that, so my understanding from the Horseshoe Hills decision, which is the decision that this comes from, which was last year, with Jeff McMahon in Parliament. was, that DNRC was gonna be reevaluating, its connection with the permit exceptions and then the subdivision approval requirements. So where DNRC essentially just sent like a cover letter to DEQ, and DEQ just kind of checked the box on that. My understanding was that the last update was that they were gonna try and workshop something in the session. What I had reviewed from the session didn't seem to pan out. However, any changes to administrative rules or statute will not go into effect until I believe like October 1 or 15, something like that, when the session language actually goes into effect. So not that I disagree with this decision, I think I would hesitate to do it now until the administrative rule language has officially changed, since it is still active language.
So I think what action we would take today would put it out for a 15-day public comment. Would it be too soon to do that, or should we wait on that?
I think we should wait on that. I don't think it hurts to have it in there, since the administrative rule that this is essentially mirroring is still active language. So that would be my take on it. I don't think it would have any sort of negative effect to wait on this particular section, but
So, do we know for sure when it takes effect? Or we
I
just,
can confirm that. I know it's sometime in October, but I can confirm.
I'm just thinking, if we wait, we should make sure the next time it's on the agenda that it's already been done. Well,
I thought it happened on Mr. Chairman.
yeah, no worries. I think it's good to get in front of the board. So comments, thoughts, I mean, Ethan, administratively, you don't need any issues with it waiting?
I am just trying to double check. What I'm reading was that it went into effect on August the 23rd of 2024. Maybe no, maybe I'm misinformed with this.
Right, the decision was in 24 though, that made DNRC go to the 25 session though, to try and rearrange some things. The 25 session ended in May. So any sort of language update into statute or administrative rule would be done this fall. And I'm not aware of any, but I could have missed this one, so it would have been a minor change.
Well, waiting for another meeting or two won't hurt us, I don't think. with the
I don't-
timeline. So,
I don't see what the negative implications would be.
Roger,
So I guess if the next time this comes in front of the board, maybe you could provide us a copy of that DEQ regulation or modification or whatever, so we can see it as part of this to be handed down. To know what it. Cause I'm a little confused because they kind of had two of them, didn't they? And have one for small subdivisions and then the DNRC quit doing that, requiring that, and then there's ruling out of the Horseshoe Hills or whatever it was that's different than that, so. So anyway, if we could just have a copy of the DEQ statute for reference, that would be handy.
okay. So I think the suggestion is, proposal is that this motion is that we take no action, while failing to verify the timing of this and get us a copy of the DEQ. Are you talking, Roger, about that administrative rules? Okay. Copy of the change that was made to ARM 1736-103. Any other thoughts? Questions? Ethan, sound all right?
Sure.
Haven't heard anything, so, all right. So with that, there will be no need for public comment and no need for board action on that today. All right. 3.3.
Mr. Chairman, board members, next section that we have here is, an array of different policy topics. And we have, some, a little bit of updated language, regarding the reservation water rights database that was in response to some comments provided by the state of Montana. We have some new sections regarding state-based registrations, some of which you took a look at a previous meeting. We have a repost for the abandonment and procedures for declaring abandonment. And we have a new section that is specifically intended to provide policy for a replacement POD, a port of diversion. And which is an item that has come forward as something that needs to be addressed in several different projects that our office has seen. And a replacement POD is a simple, it's like a mini change that has a lower bar for requirement. So that if somebody has a statement of claim or an existing permit and say it's on a lake shore, they need to move the point of diversion 200 feet to the west on the lake shore, the point of diversion would still be located in the same source and everything. However, because it is a change of POD, would normally get under the umbrella of a full-on change authorization process. This offers some clarifications about an option to make those POD changes in an easier fashion. That's kind of my overview, Mr. Chairman. Would you like to have any overview type questions, or shall I just dive right in?
Not looking at what we have here, we will look at each of these and then collectively put them out for 15-day public comment. Is that what we're doing?
That is the hope, Mr. Chair. Yes, and that if there's something that you find you don't want to go out ahead with the 15-day public comment, what we'll do is I'll ask you to make a specific exclusion for that section when you take action to move things to the 15-day cover period.
All right, any other questions on what we're doing? All right, go for it.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me a second. Yes.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the first item on our list here is going to be the update of the reservation water rights database language based on the Montana DNRC's comments. And the corrected language now reads, and this has to do, sir, with the statements of claim and what the Office of the Engineer staff would be correcting under a statement of claim. And this very specifically limits the elements of the water right that could be modified by Office of the Engineer staff to the owner names, the owner addresses, geocodes, and title status report tract number, which is a parcel tracking number used by the Bureau of Indian Affairs for tribal trust lands. And so this language is more confining than language that you did move forward under 15-day notice about permits and changes. And the reason that this is more confining language is because typically in Montana, statements of, I don't know why I said typically, in Montana, the elements of the statement of claim are under the jurisdiction of the Montana Water Code. And so, we have tried to, mimic the types of elements that the Montana DNRC would change, as they are also restricted, on what elements they can change on a statement of claim, we have kind of gone that same route with the small addition of this title status report. Tract number, which is, an option that is. More specific to the Flathead Indian Reservation. So, Mr. Chairman, board members, did I do the right job explaining that?
We're at 11-108. Sub 3,
Yes, sir.
number 3, and it's, what you're talking about is that one paragraph.
That one blurb, that starts off with correction to water rights with the priority date prior to July 1st, 1973, parentheses, statement of claim.
From an administrative standpoint, what does this mean to how you implement it?
From an administrative standpoint, this just draws a really clear, parameters around what our office would touch on the statement of claim. And so if, in contrast to, something like a permit where we might look at a permit, we might look at the filing information on a permit, we might determine that, there had been an error or an omission in the water rights data information so that the water right itself had either a significant, flow rate or other variable that, was incorrectly reported. We would be able to change that on a permit. However, on a statement of claim, we would not, and that the only avenue for as an owner of a statement of claim that had identified that there was something incorrect with their statement of claim to get that fixed, other than this list of owner's names, owner addresses, geocodes, and title status report, track number, they will have to go to the Montana Water Court to resolve their issue, other than this short abbreviated list. I hope that helped to.
Yeah, when it comes to the claims, though, when we address that the water court has the authority, which is correct, we wouldn't see those claims until the water court's done with them anyway. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, board members, those claims are alive and active and used on the Flathead Indian Reservation currently. Go ahead, Mr.
Well, so what Clayton's asking is they're being adjudicated right now. And until they come out with a preliminary decree, we won't know, but you're right, Clayton, they're being reviewed now, and until that preliminary decree is issued, we really can't do anything with them.
Well, and that kind of gets to my question. I understand it, when we understand what you're doing here, but we wouldn't have. So what is a scenario? Have you run into a situation where this office or a water user has noted that the claim is incorrect?
Yes.
And
Multiple situations, yes.
And so to make those corrections, those individuals otherwise need to address that through the water court.
Yes.
And even though we're talking about names, owner addresses, view code, status report, check number,
If we
How do
would,
we-
sorry,
how and when do we do that? How do we do that if the water court has not completed their work on that claim?
Mr. Chairman, board members, the water court actually does not have a process for updating this list of items here and relies entirely on the Montana DNRC to do that.
It's not exactly accurate. They do, you can file an amendment up to November 18th. Make any of those kind of changes. After, that's the cutoff is November 18th. Then you're done. They have a specific form for that right now.
For ownership changes,
Any change to your claim.
okay,
It did all of these things plus any challenges or any objection you want to make against your claim. You can do that up to November 18th.
So I wanna be really clear with that, okay? So it's not a change, it's an objection. So right now the objection process is open within the water court for both cases. You can self-object to your own claim. And that could be to any of the elements that anyone else could object to somebody else's water right for. But it is not a change, so I just wanna make that very, very clear, for the record. A change is a completely different process.
What you're describing is what the water court is doing.
Yes.
Okay. So what is it? So how do we engage this on a claim if the water court has not completed their work on it?
Mr. Chairman, board members, the short answer is it depends. So if and what it depends on is where the claim is located. If the claim is located on tribal trust lands, then we would have potentially a more active role in handling the ownership issues about the statement of claim. Whereas if it is truly like an ownership change, for fee land, it would have to go, things have to go through the state of Montana, through the Montana DNRC. Corrections, however, are slightly different than ownership changes. And there are scenarios where people's name is just, their name might be spelled wrong. And that would be a situation where we would go into the water rights database with the corrected information from the owner who says, you know, my name is Hat, not Bat. And we would make a correction to the water right that way. It was we did get a really good detailed set of parameters from Nate Ward and Pamela Hoyt. I did distribute those to you. Clarifications that include things like, hey, if somebody's changes their last name because of marriage, that's actually an ownership update, not a correction. And so we will have to cautiously proceed to ensure that things that we're correcting are truly corrections instead of ownership updates. And I do believe we've got a good pathway to coordinate with Montana to make sure that what we're thinking is standard with what DNRC would do. Because they do serve that function for statements of claim out of individual offices.
Whether they do it or regardless, I still, I mean, just for understanding. So how do we, you know, the mechanics of making a change is one thing, but if the water court has not completed their work on a claim, what authority do we have to change anything?
Well, correct, it's a correction, but and I might have said change myself because it's hard.
Well, I'm saying change, but it's
Yeah,
correct.
we don't have the right to change
That, but it's still a correction, changes the information in the record. So if the water court has not done their work. And if we are able to do this. How is that reflected in the water court's work then?
The water court, when they take a look at things, they do use the same water rights database information. And so if we make a correction there, it should be reflected in water court's documents as well. And so for something like a geocode, geocodes are these long numbers, and they're not surprisingly, people enter them wrong sometimes. And so that would be a situation where, hey, somebody missed a number or two for my geocode, can you fix that? That's a correction. Okay, different than saying, the place of use has been misidentified, and you put this geocode, should say this geocode, that's different, but not correction. That would be a change, and that would need to go to the budget development. Is that helping?
Yeah, is there a timing issue? I mean, if the water court. Those corrections that might be made. If the water court is actually working on that. Particular set of rights. Can those corrections be made? Or do we have to wait until the water court is done?
Mr. Chairman, board members, my understanding is that it is fine to make corrections to this small set of numbers, and that if during the adjudication proceedings, the water court was to make a more substantive change to ownership or geocode, that their final action would supersede and overtake anything that we had done. So, for instance, we'll say somebody has a geocode that needed to be corrected because of the typographical error. And we, in this office, made a correction to that geocode typographical error. Then the Montana Water Court, during the hearings over that water right, said, actually, this water right should be with a different geocode. And when they make that decision and take that action, that will override anything that we would have helped to correct. Is that helpful? Is that, okay, sorry.
Could I have what you said and what I hear moment, just to make sure I'm tracking?
Yeah.
Okay, so a correction can be done at any time as long as it falls with these parameters. The correction is not the same as a change. The change has a deadline of November 18th. No, I've got that wrong.
An objection has a deadline.
An objection. So what is the difference between a change and an objection?
An objection is a period of time when the basin first opens up to reevaluate pre-existing claims. These are pre-1973.
Okay,
So that's all the water court looks at. The water court does not look at these state-based registrations because they were filed after that time. Okay. The consideration here, though, is if there is a registration that might have similar elements or a geocode or a place of use POD, whatever, as a claim that is before the water court, there might need to be a time where the office essentially halts the review of that registration because it might be duplicative of a claim the water court is actively reviewing. But the objection period is typically like a couple months long. Anybody within the basin can receive notice, can file an objection, essentially asserting some sort of injury, to their water rights. On somebody else's water right, or that water right owner can self-object and say, oh yeah, this was overclaimed, my place of use is actually smaller than what was historically claimed.
okay.
And reduce the place of use forward, but that's just an example. A change is a full-blown process, that the DNRC does, so the water court doesn't even touch a change, DNRC does a change. So two separate procedures in two different bodies.
Great. Well, that was very helpful, and sorry if all of the rest of you probably knew that, but.
No, we need to ask these questions, so. This correction procedure. we're in good authority to do this.
Yeah, my concern when we talked about this a couple weeks ago was, if there, you know, I was concerned with, well, how, if you find something that's duplicative, you know, are you gonna communicate with water, or what are you gonna do? And then two, the board and us talked about language, second sentence into, where essentially if there is a duplicative water right that's found, that the OE will essentially just halt review of that registration until the water court has essentially figured out what to do with the claim, so.
So I think you're getting a little ahead of where they're at though. They're still under this WPP 11-1083 up above there. And haven't made it quite down to the 21-106 section.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right, no worries, and, so this is just, corrections to water right.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. Taylor Boyd commented on that, and that was her change, so I have zero issues with 108. That was actually her language that she proposed.
I can read and understand what it says. I'm just trying to further grasp how we can make any changes if the water court hasn't corrections, if the water court hasn't done their job on the claim. And
Well, so they,
if we're, you know, someone like Payla's recommending this, that's coming from the state. I'm just trying to make sure we're in good authority to do that.
this may help, you know, by making sure that the address or that the names are correct on the water right, it helps the court to contact the correct people. So that's kind of an added benefit of us helping to get these corrections in place. It does actually help the water.
In sort of tangential, I think Julie mentioned it, but I had asked, what? Other than just making the change. What if any communication do we have with the water court? So that they know we made the correction.
There's not an active communication for these types of corrections. That I'm aware of.
And we're really talking about database changes, right?
Yeah,
That's where you're cutting the soils down to.
since when they pop open that water right in the database, they would see one that was corrected, we would just have the correct spelling of the name or whatever the correction was.
Is there some record that we made the change or correction?
Or
It just,
the database should would identify that correction was made and who made that correction.
who made
By specific number, all of us that use the water rights database have got they call a CN number that identifies exactly who we are, and you have to sign in into that number.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the next section of policies and procedures that you have to look at is WPNP 21-106. My understanding is that at a meeting that I did not attend, you went through 1 through 3 of these, and I'm here to check to see if my understanding is correct. Haley was doing a great job speaking to these, and she may have talked you through 1 through 3. Am I right about that?
More to look that up.
Okay. I had noticed in my own copies that you had made some modifications, you know, that are intact here in this version as well. And so, you know, my question is, did you feel that you had handled that, these 3, or did you need to deliberate and talk more about these 3 items?
Comments, questions? Just to revisit, the Office of Engineer will suspend the duplicative state-based registration until a claim is resolved. How do we suspend it?
Mr. Chairman, board members, there is a status under each water right that we have the ability to modify from active, pending, or suspended. And
That's a database
It's another thing.
item.
yes, sir, that is a database item.
How does that work though? You can like. We have those, but then at some point they're certified, right? So the final,
Yes, this is, I suspect it will end up having additional policy as situations present, you know, but, we started off with an original recommendation, which was, you know, me saying that we just can't issue them if they are duplicative of something that had been filed for, you know, with the Montana Water Board. That was determined to be too hard of a line, and so you looked for an alternative so that it would not be fully rejected, and the alternative that came to be was to suspend the status until it's resolved.
So I had one question on that, number 3. Under this, the last sentence, where it says, the bottom sentence, the OE may require the registration owner to resolve the issue. Do we may resolve? Sounds kind of wishy-washy, you know, it's like, all right, are you gonna do it or not, or are we gonna take an action, or do we need to say the OE will require or shall require, or I'm just asking how. It seems like if you don't take an action, then it's gonna be in limbo forever.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Chairman, well, that was a tough one, and I don't disagree with you at all. I also, it may be hard to resolve those issues. But we can put a hard, I mean, if we're gonna put a hard will, we probably need to give them a timeline and what happens if they don't. Kind of a situation.
Well, I'm to read it just a slightly different. Says OE may require, well, once you decide that it's required. Question would be, why would you choose not to require it?
Yes, Mr. Chairman,
Because the may is actually on your part.
right, and I don't have a very good solution here. I had mentioned before, like I would just probably reject these registrations if they are determined to already have been filed with Montana Water. So this would be kind of a modification on what I understood the board was looking for. So I'm happy to modify that the way that however you would like to see it. I don't have a particular approach in mind.
I like may, it will allow some discretion on the engineer's part. There's going always be circumstances that could be kind of draconian or something like that, so. It is wishy-washy, I agree with you.
Well,
I think it's, in
well,
my opinion, probably
so
necessary.
even if we do may, it says if the OE determines a certificate. Permit or other state registration has been filed or issued for the same duplicate of water right. So we know there's a fact that there's a duplicate of water right. If we don't do something, we end up on record with duplicate of water. That's the issue.
Okay, so he will do something.
Well, no, you just said may.
Well, I said, he's not legally, not bound by this regulation to do something, but he will do the proper thing at his discretion.
But doesn't the way this read give the opportunity for the engineer to do that review and determine that it's not duplicative. In which case you wouldn't have to do anything. So,
Yeah,
But this is kind of exceptional because right there under the, where it's underlined, it says a post 1973 filing. So then that's not a claim, it's a post 1973 filing. So
Yes,
I don't, that's why I'm having. Cause then you're getting, if it's a post 73 filing, then it's gotta be a permit, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it could be a certificate, a permit, or an allowance. So there's a couple of things. A reason that I would perhaps not require somebody to resolve that. Is, so let's say somebody had a developed spring that served their domestic. And their spring hasn't been reliable for whatever reason. Or maybe they have a surface water running for domestic. And they'd like to get a well. Okay, and so they come in and they apply for. They registered a well. Okay, that also had a surface water. Right, for the same domestic use. I typically would not, make somebody withdraw their surface water domestic right. Because it has some value if their well goes south and they have this right to use surface water in the fish. So that would be a situation that is pretty specific, you know, where I might not make anybody do anything. Alternatively, if they had another well that had been, abandoned or whatever, but they still have an active water right for it, and they have registered a new well. That would be a situation where I would be, more inclined to make them resolve the old water right in the same source.
so getting to Roger's point, I think you said two, kind of, we use may and three conflicts with number two, where we say, well, I don't see a contradiction there, because two is a jurisdictional issue. If there's a duplicative water right, the water court has jurisdiction. Ethan simply does not have jurisdiction to do anything. Whereas three is more of a factual issue. If he determines that might be duplicative, he can ask, or he will tell the applicant or whatever to correct it. So I don't see a contradiction.
So I'm okay with that, but that is but so if it's post 73, then he does have authority to make those changes, unlike that.
True. I'm not sure what else.
Well, then why wouldn't he, if he's got authority to make those changes, then why would you, why would you not try and get it resolved?
I'm not saying he would, I'm just saying, do we tell him he has to do it, or does he look at fact and circumstances and make his own decision?
Well, your description and explanation leads me to believe that there could be a situation where we'll end up with a duplicate of water use.
Yeah, well, it's slightly different, but yeah, for the same purpose. And in that situation, like if they have a surface water source for their house and they have a groundwater source for their house. That would be a duplicative water use, but I would typically not. Unless you're hearing this and you say, yeah, you should make them get rid of one, at which point you would change this from a may to a will, which, and then my hands are actually tied to cause the owner of the duplicative uses to withdraw one.
Yes, so
Yes, I'm okay, that's next
And
one.
you're okay with a potential duplicative water use,
I'm okay with what?
the potential duplicative water use.
Well, not particularly, but I think the engineer will handle it.
Yeah, and those are, I mean, you probably recognize them better as an overlapping use, or, but that's typically what they're termed. If there's multiple water rights that are on, like over a particular place of use, it's technically called overlapping.
Right. This is all going off for public comment. Anyways. You see if anybody picks up on this. All right, you can.
All right, Mr. Chairman, board members, on to WPMP 21-107. This is a new section. I'll look to your left, should they make it to any of this previously? Okay, so I'm not aware that any of you have made it through these new.
So, almost a month and a half ago, the board made it through number 1.
Okay,
And then stopped at 2. At the last meeting that we talked about this without you present, the board felt, that it was best to discuss it when you were back, and 2 through the rest of it. So the board did review 1 a while back, but
okay.
then has not moved through the rest of it.
Great, and the first part is really helps to set some application processing standards. Setting some timelines, talking about failure to respond. The issuance of the state-based registration. And the state-based registration rejection process. And I do actually now, thank you for that reminder. I was around for that discussion, and so my apologies, I have forgotten myself. She made it through there. Board, do you want to have a additional discussion on item 1, or shall I move on to item 2? Two.
No, wait, no, we didn't. I've been carrying this comment sheet around for 3 or 4 months now. So I guess I wondered why you have defects here. And why you didn't use the term deficiency, because defect, I guess that tells me that there's a mistake or insufficient information or something, I don't know. But like there's a genetic defect would be a fault, where a deficiency is more of a shortcoming. So I just, and the DNRC always uses that they're gonna issue a deficiency letter. So I just wondered why you decided to use the word defect instead of deficiency.
Where are you at?
On number 1, under WPNP 21-101.
Oh, I see.
1A.
I'm trying to answer that here. So in the ordinance, under the section on state-based registrations, it specifically says that the OE shall review the registration form within 180 days. May either issue a registration certificate or return a defective registration form to the filer together with the reasons for returning. And so the original, language of defect came from the ordinance. For better or for worse, and I'm not disagreeing about which word to better. So, I'm just telling you the rationale of why defect is in there. I do recall during a lot of drafting, they have tried to use slightly similar but different words for the ordinance, and that defect and letters of defect was an intentional shift away from letter of deficiency or deficiency letter. It's hard for our office not to interchange them.
Yeah.
Frankly, and, and so it is, I'm not gonna sit and tell you that we are 100% consistent on our own terminology. I myself have noticed that in the same document, I have switched between defect and deficiency on inadvertent. So, just to let you know that.
Well, and neither the compact nor the ordinance is letter of defect or defect defined. There isn't a definition spelled out.
Right.
So is there any legal difference? Are they considered somewhat synonymous then?
In practice, yes. However, as far as following what the compact and the ordinance state, yes, I mean, stay close to what the ordinance is. So if it's a defect letter, then, or a defect letter, then stick with that.
That's fine, I'm just trying to figure out what the rationale was.
Sure, yeah, totally, legitimate question. I just want to look it up and show you the misquote.
But using your definition, Dr. See, now I'm gonna be up all night thinking about this. A defect could include a deficiency, but then a deficiency could include a defect. Or did I that backwards? Anyway.
That's default thinking.
For what it's worth, for every letter that we
Sorry.
write, or people.
I have to go.
Stop. Ken is cutting me off right there. It's like, that's enough.
Don't lose
I
sleep.
think it's up in class and just let students talk about it, so.
Don't lose sleep over it.
Word puzzles.
Good, Roger? All right, you guys? Good, okay.
Thanks for.
All right.
So this piece though, 21-107 goes one. I'm just looking at the side, 1 through 13, is that correct? All right. You know,
All right, Mr. Chairman, board members, item number 2, adequacy of state-based registrations, possessory interest, and all owners. The OE, this gives us the opportunity to reject state-based registration that failed to demonstrate that the owners have possessory interest and appropriate title or the written notarized permission from all owners with the possessory interest for all points of diversion, places of use, and the entirety of the conveyance. This mimics the same language that we, that the state uses for possessory interest, and it we have our own WPPs that clarify that language. And this is, the bigger scale things is really designed to keep us from issuing a registration certificate on land where the applicant didn't really have the right to apply for a water use on that land. There is a second part here, part B, which says that that state-based registration owners must update and resolve ownership issues relating to all associated parcels where the water use occurs. If, and that directs them to need to fulfill the 608, the DNRC ownership update when needed. And it does also give us an option to extend defect response deadlines. If the applicant can demonstrate the delays in DRC's processing of Form 608 caused misdemeanors, but we want them to get their ownership straight before we, go through and process, everything, associated with their registration certificate. Questions?
Headlines.
Should I keep going, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Okay. Item 3, adequacy of state-based registrations, location. This gives the OE the opportunity to reject a registration if the places of use and points of diversion locations are not clearly identified and the registration owner fails to provide corrected or missing location information identified in a defect letter. So we need to know exactly where this is, and you have to tell us, accurately where the locations are, and if you fail to do that, that would be grounds for rejecting a registration certificate. Questions? Comments?
So these things are, just trying to understand the timeframe too, they're immediate or?
When Haley brings us a big box of stuff and we start working through it, this will be something that if we have during the process, we identify that they need to go do an ownership update in advance. We're gonna give a letter that says, we're not gonna move this until you get your ownership update done.
Again, is there a time frame? I'm just curious, are we doing a time frame on that?
We're still on our same time frame, except that if we determine that the state. Yes, so for item 3, adequacy of the location, we would be under the time frame set forth under item 1, which is ballpark 45 days for them to respond. And while you were out, we did say that if there's an ownership update needed in the state delays things, then we might extend the deadline. And this policy gives us the option to do that.
I know I was looking at one from 2016 last week. Just to be clear, we're gonna get some documents somebody filed 10 years ago, and we're gonna turn around and say, you need to respond to us in 35 days. So I just want to be clear on that's what we're setting ourselves up for.
Yes,
After we didn't respond for 10 years. I'm just being clear, that's just an error, that's all.
After we didn't respond for?
Yeah, I was like, that's a scenario, but that's not.
That's not us.
That's not.
I know, I realize that. Oh,
Okay,
But I'm
I just want to
saying-
make that clear on the record here.
yeah, no, just no, I know, no, I'm aware.
But
But they
when you say
filed-
we, you
But
meant,
they filed these a long time ago, and we're just getting back to the same 5 days. So,
new rules, new laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, new process.
Share.
The we is not us, the we is, when they file with the state then.
yeah.
Yeah.
And theoretically, there'd be some back and forth before that 45-day period starts, because we would start seeing those defects. So,
yeah. All right,
just trying to take the point of Joe, small public, that's all. Support it, yeah.
Yeah.
item 4, adequacy of state-based registrations, pre-1973 filings under, ordinance 2-2-106 sub 1. And, as a reminder, one of the 3 categories of state-based registrations that people can file for are, pre-73 exempt in filing water uses. That is, stock direct from source, typically for, domestic uses. And what we have here is clarification on the 3 types of uses. This comes from efforts taken by the state during the filings allowed under House Bill 110 that make clarification that there's really A, B, and C that you could register under a pre-1973 exempt from filing type registration. And so, again, surface water, direct from source, purpose for stock, groundwater purposed for single domestic that may include lawn and garden, or groundwater purpose for stock. Those are the only three categories that were allowed to, as exempt uses.
Could you say 2-2-106?
Yes, is that, you know, what is?
2-1-106, someone.
That's what you have, yeah, you have, the paper says 2-1-106.
That is the correct citation.
Okay. Okay, so 2-1-106 sub 1 is the correct, okay, all right, sorry, if I said so.
This is wrong.
No,
What's
that's
in
correct.
the paper is correct.
Oh, excuse me, okay, yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I might have said the wrong thing, if I did, sorry, if I confused you.
So you saw that.
So that I, feeling good about this, this helps, to explain to staff, myself, and public what, set those expectations. All right, item 5, adequacy of state-based registrations volume. The OE may reject a state-based registration that fails to meet the following volume requirements. A, information needed to determine the maximum annual diverted volumes as identified in a defect letter. B, the OE calculates the volume that the volume exceeds the allowable amount for a state-based registration. S needs to go away. And the registrant fails to provide a reduction or correction form 625F that adequately addresses the volume overage. Under that, there's some clarifications that registrations that would qualify as an exception to the permit requirements of 85-306 are limited to 10 acre feet per year, and registrations that would qualify as an exception to the permit requirements of 85-306 as completed stock water pit or reservoir are limited to 30 acre feet per year with an impoundment or pit less than 15 acre feet in volume. Is it helpful when I read them all like this? Okay, yeah, all right. Try to figure it. All right, is there any questions under item 5? Or issues?
Yeah, I mean, I have an issue with considering registrations to be considered in like a permit exception context, because these are water rights that have been existing. So technically they're existing uses. Permit exceptions are looking at when somebody comes in for a new application of water, you look at the existing. So to me, when you're looking at a registration, it is not a new use, that's an existing use. So any sort of permit exception consideration should not be taken into account when looking at a registration. It should just be based on, whether it exceeds, like if it's for domestic 2.4, right? If it exceeds that, then clearly yes. But as far as a permit exception consideration, I don't think that that is, legally sound.
Could you point to the language here?
It's kind of throughout 5 and through 7. I mean, 7 is the biggest one on that, but 5B talks about that.
So what you're saying is, so when these were filed, they were filed as 602s basically. And when you file a 602 form, the DNRC pretty much takes that at face value, turns around and issues you a water right. So now, this is, and I've had that concern for quite a while, same thing. That now we're going back and changing something that's already been filed on and believed to be in existence.
Well, it's not necessarily that I'm concerned about changing it because there does need to be the corrections made to it, right? If it's not, if there are certain things that were not filed properly. However, a permit exception consideration is only done when you are applying for a new use of water. So for example, when we were working on the development domestic allowance section of the WPMPs, that's where the permit exceptions first came on. That was where the board determined the 40-acre parcel would be limited to 10 acre feet. And so that's the permit exception consideration, but it's for a new use of water. So a new allowance, a new permit. These are existing uses.
Right, so there are existing uses that are predicated under 85 to 306. Under the 602 process, which did impose combined appropriations restrictions.
That's what the state has been doing. Whether that's something the board should consider or not is up for discussion. I'm suggesting that I'm not comfortable with it. You're asking for comment and that was what I was providing. As far as I know, combined appropriation consideration is completely up in the air right now with DNRC.
Well, board, this, especially as we get down to the highlighted language, does, look to have the types of limitations to a 10-acre foot maximum. It does look at registrations as permit exceptions and imposes the general 10-acre foot permit exception rules that we would look at for a new use. It does give an option for folks to reduce their use, but if that doesn't match what you want to do, this would be the time to tell me.
Well, Haley, I think I understand your concern. How would you fix it?
I would not consider permit exceptions for a registration.
Are you saying strike it?
There needs to be consideration of what the volume limit is, and what the flow rate limit is, but that's already determined within the ordinance on what those limits are. As far as a permit exception, that's looking at, so if you have this registration and let's say you have 2 claims and let's say you're also applying for a domestic allowance. It's taking all 4 of those water uses and collectively looking at it to limit it to 10 acre feet is essentially what that's saying. And this is an existing use. That's only done when there's a new use involved. So if you have a registration and a claim, but then let's say next year you're gonna apply for a domestic allowance, then you would look at that. Because it's a new use being added to those existing uses.
So Ethan, where did you come up with this language exception to it from? I mean, why did you think it was necessary?
Trying to
I'm not sure it says. I'm not sure it says. what it's
No,
understand.
I appreciate it. So I was trying to come up with a way that would similarly impose what diversity would have looked at if they had multiple 602s filed on the same parcel. And whether, the board wants to do that, I don't know.
Haley, when I asked, we were on 5, and you said, well, the issue is sort of all through 5, 6, and 7. The only place I see the language permit exception is in 7. Was there something in 5 and 6 that were?
Yeah, it's not in 6, it's in 5, 5B, I, and little I. Or sorry, little I and, yeah,
Okay, an exception to the
Sorry.
permit
I
requirement.
and double I can't speak right now.
Exception to the permit requirement language, okay.
So, seeing what Ethan was trying to accomplish, I mean, I think I hear you saying that it's not necessary to put it here.
Well, from my understanding of that section of the code, it's not, that was also looking at those at that time and evaluating stock uses at that time. So it was essentially new 602s. That's what that section is looking at. These are not new water rights. These are existing water rights. That section of the Montana code that is being referred to were for new 602s being reviewed on pre-existing claims.
Yeah. So I'm looking at an older version of this. You must have recently added little I and little I two, because the original version didn't have that.
I mean, well, it's sent out the other way with this version,
I guess I'm looking at my comments sheet that I've been carrying around for a while, when we started this process.
And also so that everybody can understand, under the I, this language, it says registrations that would qualify as an exception to the permit requirements of 85-2306 MCA. That's right out of the ordinance, under 2-1-106. Sub 2, where it says were developed on or after July 1st, 1973, at a volume and flow rate that would qualify as an exception to the permit requirements of 85-2306 MCA. So that is like, right, that in particular language is very specifically just right out of the ordinance. I didn't, it wasn't my like exception, the stuff under 7 is more. I had more of a drafting hand under that.
If it's in the ordinance, why do we need it here? That's specific.
Because I think it's tricky. I think it should be really clear, that, what we have here is it adds the volume clarification under, so if you look at little I, and it says are limited to 10 acre-feet per year. That portion was not in the ordinance, and that is additional information about about 602 that I think is meaningful to help clarify here.
So let me just clarify that particular section in the ordinance. It would qualify, volume and flow rate qualifies as a permit exception under that particular section of the Montana code, right, from a state-based level. So when they were being applied for, it had to have a certain volume and flow rate that it could not exceed. That's what it means by that. Here is adding an entirely new layer of looking at it from what you have already approved as your permit exception requirements. So essentially it would be to go back and change what was already applied for under the permit exceptions for those 602s. That's why I don't think it's necessary. I think it exceeds what the scope of this review should be.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to hear, it's not necessary. Okay. Well, this one, I didn't phrase that wrong. We can deal with it here one way or another, I just want to understand what the thought was.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is tricky, right? I mean, because the language of the ordinance does say qualifies an exception to the permit requirements, but that's under the Montana code section when they're being applied for. Now in the review, it's looking at it from that standpoint, not what the board has set at 10 acre-feet for 40 acre parcels.
So Haley, to resolve it, getting back to Ken's question, is what you're recommending in your comment, would that be to strike that language?
Yes,
That's what, okay.
I think any sort of suggestion of permit exceptions in a registration evaluation is not accurate.
So then Ethan, why would you not want to? Sure.
Well, so, okay, I go back to what the registration language, registrations that would qualify as an exception to the permit requirements, you know, like the 602. If there were 2 wells right next to each other, filed for 10 acre-feet each, they would no longer qualify. So like, to me, the qualification is something more than just the single isolated point of conversion. It includes a larger construct of, you know, whatever this area is in which the total is supposed to be less than 10.
But if I'm understanding Haley, we would have already reviewed that.
Well, we didn't, we're after review, but the scope of the review can only extend to what the exceptions were when it was applied for. To go back now and say, oh, well, the board made up this 40 acre parcel, 10 acre foot limit, that's not what was applied for. And not what was stated on the application,
Didn't exist back then,
no.
so.
Okay, I see.
And also, permit exceptions under the board only extend back to the date of the compact.
So if we were to do that now,
You're
we would-
changing the entire scope of the registration.
So you're saying is, if we didn't know, that might be considered arbitrary and capricious.
I agree, yeah,
and it could expose us to
I'm very concerned about, it, yes.
suits and things, okay. I'm catching up.
I can't 100% state that, so yes, in an open meeting.
Gotcha.
It's complicated.
This is why we tabled this discussion. To what it comes here.
No,
So we would just strike I and the line, the light too.
that would be my suggestion, and I would also say to strike 7.
7.
Are you saying all of 7 or just the first sentence?
All of 7.
I think if you wanna like avoid the permit exception consideration, you should strike 7, but I still think there's value in keeping I and little I. Or little I and I. Mostly because I really just wanna clarify for those individual registrations, what that volume limit is. And
But they would have known that at the time of applying for it. It's on the registration application in the box at the top. So they already knew what that limit would be. And if they exceeded that, then that's a defect.
we can manage it without I. And without, if you want to strike 7. So, is that what I'm hearing you want to do, or you want to keep
Yeah,
talking?
if we strike I and double O, does that change 5B at all? 5B stand?
No. No, because that would be, so at the top of the registration, there's like the little box, you know, that lists information of what somebody would be applying for, you know, that use would be. In those registrations, they have a volume limit and a flow rate limit, and it's not to exceed that, so they were supposed to declare that they, you know, met that. And if they don't, then, yeah, the OE can be like, yep, you better. Although the state should have also flagged that too, hopefully.
All right. For discussion, recommendation is to strike 5BI and 5BII and 7.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Yes, please.
Six was kind of in the middle there. Does everybody feel like 6 was good to go, or do you have additional? I don't want to move past something that you might have thoughts about. It does spec out 35 gallons per minute.
Is that a change, like, from the original going back to Haley's point.
We can reword 6 to just read, like he does. Or actually, rework B and just read exactly like 5B. And if you could just copy 5B, dump it on top of 6B, and then change the word, volume to flow rate. Recursion clause.
Okay.
You need to leave the word overages. Maybe the first. Yes, sorry. Yeah, that's. Does that work for? Okay. Under 8, the adequacy of the state-based registrations, this is just to make it clear that we, would not be registering anything where the water was not put to use by September 17th of 2021, which is the effective date of that act.
Is that data requirement?
So, Mr. Chairman.
Is that date a requirement?
Yes, these needed to be existing. And so, they would have had to been put to use by that time. Nine is adequacy of state-based registrations wrong from filed.
So line confuses, me.
Okay,
You're filing for something, how can you terminate an application? Would it not be a deficiency letter rather than termination letter? I don't know, I'm asking.
all right, so, let's say somebody filed a registration for 30 acres of irrigation. I think that's just the wrong thing. That's, we could handle it. We can handle it under just a defect on the volume issue.
Well, I mean, what are you terminating?
We would be terminating the registration certificate, the registration. So if you filed under the 180-day registration process, a registration for, we'll just stick with this 30 acres of irrigation. It's so far outside the scope of what's allowable under a registration that I would consider it to be wrongful filed as opposed to like a defective registration.
And termination means wrong form filed.
Termination would mean like the registration is not, we're not gonna keep that registration.
And what's their remedy?
Yeah, it's the next question.
They'd have to try to get a permit, but there could be situations where
Through
they
the
don't,
office, yeah.
or they might have to just turn off their volumes.
Okay, so the remedy to come to you and get a permit.
Yeah, if they can, okay.
Yeah, so. Just an example. So say somebody they file. And under the volume, they put 30 acre feet. And it was a typo and it should have been 10 acre feet. So you're gonna just terminate that rather than send them some sort of notification that,
No, that would seem more like a defect.
isn't that what this is saying?
9,
Filed for one phone. I mean, it might just be a typo. But I guess I wouldn't wanna see somebody have their whole registration rejected just because of the typo.
We can just treat them all as defects. Would you like us to do that, even if it's 30 acres of irrigation?
Okay, walk me through. I feel like the board's chill today. I'm just asking all the dumb questions.
no, do it.
So if somebody pays the fee to start this process, if it's terminated, to remedy it, they would have to pay another application fee?
You can't remedy a terminated registration.
Okay, that's helpful. So if it's a defect, then you pay the application fee, you correct it, you don't have to pay another fee again. You just correct the defect, correct?
Okay, so if you file a registration and we identify it's got a defect, like you wrote 30 acre feet instead of 10 acre feet. You're gonna send me a letter that says you can't do 30 acre feet. You know, you need to fix your file. And then they respond to us, and either fix their filing or they maybe don't respond. Or maybe they say, no, we use 30 acre feet, and if they say like, well, we use 30 acre feet, then we would reject the registration.
But if it's a typo,
Yeah.
they just put the wrong number in,
Yeah.
then they don't have to restart the process.
Or they don't know what an acre foot is. I mean, that's common.
Those
So,
things happen.
you know, like,
I guess the point I'm ultimately trying to get to is, it seems to me if, you know, just the average person off the streets trying to walk through the process, we don't want to make it more onerous than it needs to be or charge them. You know, that's where I would see the public being upset about something like that. So I want to be careful with the language we use so that we protect them as they're walking through, which I know that's what you're doing too. I'm just trying to understand how it works.
well, this is mostly for, there are some application or registrations of uses that it was highly likely to be registered. That it was not. That use, because it's way in excess of everything written. Things like that, but, yeah, I do think that there's two different ways to address it. I think this 9 is a little faster for obvious situations where there's just no way that 30 acres of irrigation is ever gonna be able to move forward a registration. You know, we should just terminate that registration. Or B, we just write with a defect letter and it's all resolved.
Well, I think what George is getting to is the human side of it. Before A or B is, it comes about, we're gonna actually have a conversation with them to clarify exactly what they were. Right. Okay.
I can't hear
Oh.
you over there.
Well, I was just saying, I mean, I think what's missing here is before we just summarily like dismiss it, we're going to have a conversation with them and get clarification. Did you really mean 30 acre feet? If it's yes, then no, we might reject it. And if it's no, that was just a typo, then we cut another out. Right, am I correct, Ethan? I think that's kind of what's missing from this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of correct, except that 9 does not have an additional discussion component, but 9 is also not designed to handle typos. It is designed to handle, like, oh, I have a giant hydro power facility that I'm trying to, you know, put on a 10 acre foot registration. And that would be wrong form file.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
just something totally different.
Gotcha.
But I can handle, like, if 9 gives y'all heartburn, we administratively, we can operate without 9.
I don't know if it gives me heartburn. I was just trying to figure out what it was, burning or not burning. So, and that helped, so thank.
Well, let me. The more I look at this, the more I have to think about it, so. Though Haley, I just. Maybe there's not an issue with any of this, but. Individuals file registrations with the state of Montana. And that's those boxes that we're getting and we're reviewing those.
Correct.
Individuals file those registrations with the state of Montana, walking around thinking they have a water. Now, we know that this process is going to complete that. But I'm also wanting to be a little bit cautious of just, again, looking at something, oh, that's wrong, let's just throw it out. Without giving them at least the opportunity to understand why we might throw it out. Correcting certain deficiencies is one thing, but something like 9. This seems like across the board, we would be better served if we're trying to communicate with them. Where we see problems. And try to make those corrections on the record. Because as an individual, I file this, may have been wrong with the state, because we're gonna reject something and they're gonna go, well, wait a second, I got a water right, the state says I have a water. What other than what we're doing, what remedy does a water user have, say, to go back to the state and say, oh, wait a second, they're throwing this out, I filed this with you, I thought it was correct. I'm just starting to wonder what kind of can of worms we're opening by going down that path.
Oh yeah, my suggestion would not be to have it just be straight termination. I think 10 is a good example of like what the office could do. That would be very similar, right? We're just send a letter to the owner of record. And if there was an ownership update, that was the NRC did, contact that person and just ask, right? Well, what's going on? It's not a letter of defect, it's just a letter of inquiry almost.
Notice of some kind.
Yeah.
We're reviewing this under our rule, under our procedures and our
Well,
ordinance.
these were always the intended procedures, right, like it was to come into this body, right, and that's.
Yeah.
All throughout the registration forms that, it would be within use of the compact, right, so there was always the intended evaluation under the compact. But, yes, I mean, I don't think just going straight to a termination would be appropriate, but, I mean, it's not wrong, but I just don't think it's appropriate.
Yeah, and I also think that if we're going through them and there's not a problem when we're filing them, things aren't. They're not even gonna know. Right, at some point they'll get a record says, yeah, it's been filed. If we're saying that there are any kind of issues with problems, communicating with them, I think is important.
Yeah, I mean, if everything's right, they'll get their paper water, right? But yeah, if there is something that maybe a staff member is just unclear on or doesn't look right and they just have this feeling, I mean, I think just sending out some sort of notice is better safe than sorry. Especially when we are dealing with something where a lot of the public, I think, perceives these to be, a finalized water, which is, I mean, it is, but it's not finalized.
Right.
So that's the thing, right? It's an existing use, but it's not finalized.
But the other thing that it makes me think and wonder is when I'm wondering a couple things. One is, should we put out some kind of general educational piece that talks about this process so that people are aware that this is happening and this is how it's happening and why? Or maybe a little, half-page summary of it. why we're doing it and how we're doing it, that's attached to any letter we send out. Because there's an education, I'm just saying, an understanding education piece, we're trying to understand it, but you got members of the public who are gonna be all of a sudden hit with this and they say, oh, wait, what's going on? And I think if we can provide a little, in addition to communicating, a little bit of education on what it is we're doing, why we're doing it. And if they have questions to contact us kind of thing, I think would be helpful as well. That's just my thinking about this in general. You know, reviewing these registrations is a critical step. So, but I think we need to figure out how we do this in a way that the public can, that we're helping them understand it as well as trying to make our record correct.
So can I add a somewhat embarrassing example? I actually did file the wrong forms. And it was honest misunderstanding. And the state immediately wrote me a letter and said you used the wrong forms. And I filed the right ones. I mean, I think the state was pretty much on people filing the wrong forms.
Yeah. Well, but any and all the other corrections, so it gets, the other piece of my question is, or if it's a question is, as an individual, why we're going through this, what if any, you know, if we say there's a problem and something has to change and they don't get what they expected, so what if any recourse with the state as an individual, what do you have?
You know, this is under the jurisdiction of the board and, well, when they're transferred to the office, it's the office, but right now, the rest of them are under the board. They're all in my file cabinets.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I guess it's more, you know, if I'm a water user, I'm gonna say, well, they didn't tell me they screwed up, they should have done. I'm gonna go back to the state and say, hey, you know, this is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, that's not necessary. I understand the concern. I want to limit the amount of responsibility that the board has to take on that.
Yeah.
Because the states have these for a very, very long
Yes.
time. And they've done a lot of communication, a lot of noticing on what the process was gonna be. When these were actually transferred to my office, your Helena location, the DNRC did issue a chain of custody letter that was publicly available. So there was an update to the public on this process.
Okay.
And that it is now before the board, and then when the board transfers it to the office evaluates the registrations.
That chain of custody letter that you just described was to us or to the public?
It was to us, but it was publicly available. Anything that the NRC puts out between public bodies is publicly available. So I believe they put it on their, contact page. Was my understanding that it would be put on that contact page with the NRC, so the public can access it.
Yeah. I just feel like though, if we're starting to interface with individual applicants and we're finding problems, while we want to correct things and make it right, make the record right, we also want to try to build a relationship with the public, not just hammering. That's my.
Because while it may have been publicly available,
They're
look
not-
how many public we have here today, right? So how many actually read it when it was posted?
They didn't.
They didn't, so then,
Yeah, right.
Well, I like that idea. To send out a press release, basically say, hey, you know. There were 1,700 state-based registrations and 1,700 late claim filings filed during this interim process. The board is now starting the review of all of these, and we will be contacting people if there's questions on it, you know?
Something like
And
that.
that would go a big way to just letting everybody put it in the leader or just get a hold of them. I mean, it's a press release, you know, so
Yeah.
they should be willing to, we should write up something like that.
And then when and if we send a defect letter or a letter of inquiry, we attach that to it.
Yeah.
So that they have that information in addition.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, that, yeah. Thoughts? Well,
Yeah, like,
okay, I know that's not on a particular point, but I think that's. I think that expressing our sentiments of how do we capture that, I think we need to do that.
So Ethan, maybe for the next board meeting or something, you could kind of draft something up, so we could take a look at it and get that press release out.
All righty.
And then so getting back to the 9, I think even if what you found is what, even if that's 100% correct, that we should just chuck it. We should,
Based on your discussion, we have some redrafted language here. It's a different approach. See if maybe this works.
and then the time frame you're saying goes back to what you said, 45 days.
Yeah, the overall, yeah, this overall.
Yeah. And we'd let them know, okay. Probably in the letter, yeah.
Yeah. You think this looks better? This is what you had in mind?
Yes, but I would have said trying to use an inappropriate application type rather than an application type inappropriately.
Okay.
Would you say that again?
I would say trying to use an inappropriate application type. As opposed to application type inappropriately.
Hmm.
Yeah.
This is a kinder, gentler approach.
Yeah.
I like that. We had that training yesterday and at SKC, and one of the things that was discussed is you could give the exact same information to 5 different people. And 5 different people are going to hear it through 5 different filters. And what they hear may or may not have any bearing on the facts. So I think we know that there are those types of issues here, don't we? So just a little follow-up never hurts. So,
Well, I think if, in addition to that, it also builds a record that we've attempted to communicate with them and give them the opportunity, as opposed to just pushing them to hire an attorney and sue us because we've done something
Yeah.
inappropriate.
I like that.
They might do it anyway, but at least we've got a record that built also that we're trying to work with.
I have a slight tangent before we get to the next number, if you allow. It's specific about the registrations, but generally what we were planning to do, the language of the ordinance says that if there's no return a defective registration form to the filing. And our plan is to send them a link to the water rights database instead of mailing.
Can you kind of restate it just a little bit again?
Sure.
And I also have just a little bit of hard time hearing you, sorry.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the ordinance specifically talking about what the OE is gonna do when they receive the registration forms, is that we'll either issue it or will return a defective registration form to the filer together with the reasons for returning it. And instead of printing off the old registration, we would like to just send them a link to the water rights database where they can look at the registration.
Thoughts?
No. None.
You'd be okay with just sending a link?
What percentage of folks can't access the web?
They would all have the option to just call our off if you need something. We have a standard language at the bottom of every letter that, every defect letter that contact our office, at which point we can try to make alternative arrangements. Some people will try to come in, some people might do something else. We're usually willing to go out of the way to help folks. I just don't really have to print off a whole bunch of stuff and cram it in envelopes if I don't think it's particularly necessary.
So, regardless, in order to inform them of their options, we'd send a letter anyway.
Yep, the letter's going, there's a letter going for sure. But the difference, I mean, some of these registration forms are. There could be a lot of information there, and so. The difference between one page in an envelope and. You know, a big stack of stuff, it adds up.
Yeah, so I'm gonna ask it from a legal perspective then, do we have any obligation to send a file, or are we still in good standing formally if we just say, here's a link? I mean, I don't know what other courts do, I don't know what other administrative programs do.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right, because there's a shift away from physical mailing
Yeah.
from all courts, all administrative bodies right now. I think there's actually only one judicial district that is still doing physical, copies and mailings. Like DNRC, for example, is shifting to completely electronic. So, I mean, in the ordinance, as far as required, it says may be accomplished by mailing. So I think it gives us a little bit of discretion, right, in what that mode could be.
So a letter that says, we have your filing, there's a defect. These are potential defects. Here's a link to review that, to make, contact us to make corrections. But you have the option of receiving a full hard copy if you do contact our office now. If they do that, we have an obligation to provide it without cost. Or can you charge it?
Oh, I would probably say no. I mean, it is publicly available. Like, somebody could go on the query system and look at it, but that also requires people to understand how to look up pending on the query system.
No, I mean, sending a hard copy, we're required to do that.
Right, that's what I'm getting to. So, I don't think we could charge for sending. a
No
hard copy.
administrative fee for
I
sending,
don't think
okay,
we could.
all right.
One of the things that I had when in talking to staff recommended was in a defect letter to say, like if it's a really complex one or something, to actually put in the defect letter, setting up an appointment time. So that owner can come in and actually see the physical filing, go through it again with staff present and work through those things. And that, I think that just cuts out the issue of having to print regardless, right?
As an option anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. All right. Any other thoughts?
Good.
All right. I'm hearing break time,
Yes.
so hit pause, thank you, it's the break. All right, thank you, so, during the break, a little side discussion here. Was thought we should make sure we do get through item 4 and item 7 today. So we'll just continue what we're doing. And by 4, I'll suggest that by 4:30, or about, if we haven't gotten to them already, then we'll just prioritize those 2 items. That sound all right? Yeah, all right. Get hard.
For sure, then. All right, for, draft back up, please. I believe that this brings us, we've resolved item 9. To your liking, bringing us to item 10, adequacy of state-based registrations fees due. And this is to make clarification, we are aware that some of the registration filings did not include fees paid to the state. And this contemplates that we would require the registrant to pay a fee before we would process their registration. And we contemplated the original fee plus an additional processing fee of $30.
So if there was a state registration filing fee and they hadn't paid it, I don't know what their rules were, but does that invalidate those filings from the beginning? Or
That is an option for you to consider them to be invalid.
well, I'm not asking about us, I'm asking what this,
They collected them and passed them through us and identified that they had not paid the fee.
How many of those are you running into?
I don't remember the total count.
I'm surprised that there'd be any.
yeah, I would have thought so, like. So that they passed them through, but under normal circumstances, I mean, do we know what the state rule was? If they didn't pay for their registration, do they?
I think they just kind of shoved them in the files and put a note on it. That's what I've been seeing when I look through the hard record, is some sort of like sticky note or note on the hard file that says, you know, like, no filing fee or, like no contact information, something like that.
Well. But those are registrations that were, I mean, that whole process was sort of contemplating that it was all gonna shift over to us, right?
Right.
But that, I think that's not the question. The question is barring that, under normal circumstances, if under the state rules, if somebody didn't pay their filing fee, they would not get a registration, or they would get it and they would have to pay later. Don't know how the state handled that.
I mean, typically they'll just contact them and say there wasn't a fee filed with this, and the filing would not be processed yet. So it wouldn't even be,
You
you
would
know,
get the file.
admitted into their office.
It would,
It essentially is in limbo until that filing fee is also brought in.
yeah, it wouldn't even get entered into the database if there was no check.
Right.
So what, Ethan?
36 in the 180-day filings.
So, what Ethan is posed here for number 10, does that seem fair? I'm not saying it's not, I'm just. Based on that information.
Yeah, I mean, I think requiring, you know, the applicant to file the fee is necessary. I don't know about the additional processing fee. I'm a little stuck on that right now. Not that the board couldn't put in place additional fees, I just wonder about the image of it. The perception of it.
What do we charge for a new application? Fee?
Typically, we're at $225, $250 for,
$30 is not.
isn't it pretty insignificant, but it does help us to feel better about having to write a whole separate letter. And correspondence, that does not resolve the issues with the, with the application. There's another 17 that have, defects in fees paid that were received before the 180-day filing period, so there's.
So I thought the standard fee was even $125 or something back then.
Yep.
So why are we just going for $30?
No, that's the regular. He's saying here that they need to pay their registration fee and pay an administrative fee for us, $30. So the other question that raises for me is if we require them to pay their registration application fee, is that based on the state's amount and the state requirement, and do we get to keep it?
It was 125 at the time of filing. The state actually transferred all of those fees over to the board, if you don't remember,
Oh,
4 months, 5 months ago, what was that? It was a bit ago.
Yep.
and so if we send it out, somebody says, no, we're just gonna drop it, we just cancel the thing, or they say they're not gonna pay?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially the fact.
Yeah. Thoughts? You still good with the $30?
You didn't wanna make it even on 50?
We could just pick a number, that would make it easy if you want, just say 150 total.
It was 125 to file.
One
and I was
number,
saying
just say one
125,
number.
150. Does not matter. Just easy math.
Either way you do it, yeah,
I kind of like the idea of just striking this and saying we pay $150. That all of a sudden got simple, clean.
you simplify it,
Yeah, is that all right?
Yeah, I think we just have a
$150.
straight number. Then nobody's gonna read that an additional processing fee and get triggered. So,
Yeah, it's like it's already built in.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah. I think the perception piece kind of removes itself by doing that.
agreed.
fine with me.
Yeah, I was on that sentence, it just, the OE will send a letter to the owners of record indicating that $150 processing fee is due.
And what about that phrase at the
Application
end?
fee, for the application, because that's what it was, it's an application.
So if you get a letter and somebody decides to call up and say, well, what do you base that on? We just tell
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
them, or
Well, I think we have to get rid of the phrase at the end, like, at the last sentence. As the applicant owner of record pays the state-based registration fees, period. Yeah, it's just that last sentence, I would get rid of the phrase and the additional OE processing fees in their entirety.
Yeah.
Right there, yeah.
So, right, so hold on, let me clarify this, if they don't pay, we'll reject the registration. Is that what I'm hearing you guys tell?
Gotta pay to play.
Yeah. But failure for the owner of record to provide the application fee will result in
Case registration fee. Get rid of parentheses.
at the end. Failure to pay the fee will result in rejection of the registration. Rejection. That is from the ordinance. Is that okay?
Yeah, but change where it says fees, parentheses,
Maybe it's, yeah, we don't need to-
is fee.
this is okay. Nice work.
Go us.
Volume standards, the area shall apply water use standards as specified in the DRC water population guide. So, your packet does have the DRC water population guide. This would have been the standards that the state applied for those types of applications. And we are clarifying that we would just use the same standards. Right?
That's in the packet there, guys.
Yes, sir.
Comments, questions?
I've never been to a prairie dog farm meeting. A ranch.
Is that in there?
125 prairie dogs.
That's on the states, like, that's on their standardized sheets.
Oh.
You see it on the animal,
People's wondering, an animal unit?
when it's 300 chickens.
They should just change that to 125 cannibals, because that's what they are. They just eat each other.
Now Georgia and Ken are so curious. They want to see-
Yeah, we're checking it out now. Got it.
Is that chickens on it though? That's the question.
Wow.
All right, number 12 is another adequacy standard, and it has to do with shared wells. And, what we're contemplating here is that if we identify that wells are shared amongst parcels, that, one, they're gonna be associated with formal remarks on the water rights, which would be registration certificates, or other water rights in some cases. Also, we're trying to figure out, so we got in here that if we identify a shared well where one or more users have not filed or do not hold an active water right for a portion of the use, then no registration certificates shall be issued for that well until all uses come into compliance. So this is a tough spot for some people to be in, but if you are on a shared well and there's two houses on the same shared well, or one of the houses filed and the other one didn't, we want to require both houses, get in compliance because of the shared nature of.
You're a shared well agreement.
Yeah.
What, if any, rule did the state have on shared well? I mean, at the time these people filed their registrations, if there were a well that was being shared, did the state rules require that they do a similar thing?
Typically, because of the requirements under the possessory interest. There'd be easements and connections between the properties.
Have you seen any of these?
Shit, what else is there everywhere?
No, I mean, I'm in the,
No, but there's gonna be some, yeah. I mean, we haven't run across any, I don't know, have we run into any registrations that are shared that are a problem? Well, yeah, we have, because that one three property group is in this category, so yes.
I looked at a couple today. I didn't think there were problems though.
The DEQ has a shared well agreement, just the generic one. If you have to send something out, you might send something out like that so that you get some paperwork back. Sure, that's applicable.
Yeah, usually we put off, like, recommending any legal documents, but I'm happy to share DEQ stuff.
Yeah, well, that's just trying to help them
Yeah.
come into compliance.
well, okay, but don't we have a shared well process?
We do for all foregoing stuff, and, we require, we absolutely require that if there's a shared well situation, either end. Sometimes we'll give, authorization to construct a well, but we'll say that you're not gonna get a final water right until you bring us the executed, not only a drafted shared well agreement, but one that's actually executed with the county.
So to complete this, in that situation, what would you? What agreement would you use? Would it be what Roger just mentioned or something else?
We just caught a shared well, like under C registrations, for shared wells require someone to record shared well agreement to be added to the water right. And it's pretty straightforward. I didn't answer your question, I'm sorry.
Well, a shared well agreement is something we provide, something they provide, something we just make up or what?
No, that's up to them.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a property
and
governance
that's what
topic.
you're suggesting we do.
Well, I'm just trying to, these were all old things that people really don't know, but with our new system, we have a pretty good system. But
Yeah,
I'm just trying to help these people
Yeah.
that might have a deficiency out to expedite make life a little easier, so they don't have to go pay an attorney to write something up.
yeah, so I guess that sort of leans toward the side from the attorneys. Is there any reason to provide a minimum standard for what a shared well agreement looks like? Or we just accept whatever they give us?
We usually can tell pretty easy if it's got the appropriate signatures and it says it's a shared. I mean, they're not terribly complicated.
Yeah, no, I just.
Some people have some really complicated ones where where they really gone above and beyond, the call, but, for the most part, they're pretty straightforward. And we usually recommend that it handles maintenance, easement for access, and then clarification about electricity and what a portion of the water supply.
Well, what you just said is you usually recommend, so are we gonna recommend what might go into a shared well agreement, or will we just, or we just leave it up to them?
We do generally leave it up to them. Alrighty, the adequacy of state-based registrations, ponds, pits, and reservoirs. Keep in mind that these filings do allow for ponds and pits and reservoirs. That's under 602. And so what we are making as an additional clarification here is that we need to get an idea of the surface water source that might be included in the use, the maximum depth and surface area. And then we make the clarification here that we will use the DNRC 602 pond guidance document to calculate the total annual volume, which cumulatively includes water surface evaporation, reservoir volume, and any diverted uses. This is the way that the state does it. These volumes contribute toward the applicant's maximum annual. I will change this word permit exception to maximum annual allowable volume. Maximum annual allowable volume instead of, we're down lower than that under, there's this permit exception. Say maximum annual volume instead of permit exception ones. Oh, and so. Yeah, that's it. Right.
Oh.
It says annual, but we're just gonna remember all those for right there. All right. And you do have a copy of the 603 pond guidance in your information in case you wanted to have that as a reference. We think this is pretty straightforward, but kind of wanted to set the expectation.
Good with 13? That brings us through, where you see B 21-106, 107, 108, or 107. Yeah. There are no other questions, we can move on to 108.
All right, Mr. Chairman, board members, 108 failure to register an existing use of water. Failure to apply application, for new use, applicants who failed, to file for existing uses pursuant to the ordinance section on registrations. It's a little dark under this green highlight, sorry. May file an application with the OE to establish a new water right for an application type that can accommodate their use or reduced use and is also attainable in the area. The OE shall process that application according to the ordinance and WPMPs. The priority date of these water rights shall be the date that the application was received by the OE. Water right element restrictions such as maximum volume, maximum flow rate, allowed irrigation acreage, and source restrictions shall follow guidelines set forth in the ordinance and WPMP depending on water rate type. So this basically is saying, you know, if you failed to apply for something and you had a groundwater pit, we don't have that option for you anymore under a domestic allowance. You might have to change. And you have to comply with what is now allowed.
So the board did look at this one last time.
Oh,
Well, and I'm kind of, I don't know, the changes that I had suggested are not in this. I had suggested to delete. The OE shall process the application according to the ordinance WPMPs, that's a given. I don't think it needs to be restated.
Okay.
And then same with the last sentence, I don't think it needs to be restated either. I mean, that's what you're doing, is evaluating under those standards. But I'm trying to find the notes on it, so. The other suggestion from a board member, I don't have who it came from, was to delete. In the first sentence. Stop at establishing a water right.
Yeah, I think we had some discussion over some of the other language, accommodate their use or reduce use.
Obtaining water right.
And also obtained in the area, yeah.
That was what I had in my notes.
Yeah, I think that's right. Let's see, what does this look like now?
Short and sweet.
So, just a reminder, remind me. Applicants who failed to file for existing uses. To the ordinance 21-106-233. What is that language?
That is a reference to the state-based registrations for post 73
Okay,
use.
so they're essentially, yeah. is essentially being told to apply for a new permit.
With the clarification that it'll have the priority date, I like that it had the new maximums, but that's all right.
If we're citing ordinance section 2:1, 106(2) through 3, do we want to cite the section of the ordinance you'd follow for filing a new application? And
Or you can just add it to that end of that sentence and say, you know, under two, or the two.
you know, whatever that is, yeah. Do that.
2:101.
Comments? Anybody awake? All right,
Next section, Mr. Chairman, is a repost for a portion of things from the procedure for declaring abandonment. You had wanted me to go get some clarification from subcommittee, because we did get the clarification. He withdrew his comments, and he's good to go with this language.
This, I don't, so this seems kind of weird. The more I read it, I guess. Procedure for declaring abandonment, shouldn't it be like water use reduction, and then this seems kind of redundant in here too, like. I was gonna rewrite this to say for purposes of ordinance 2-1-111, a petitioner claiming a reduced water supply will be considered prima facie evidence a reduction has occurred, period. Cause you got reduced water supply twice, it just sounds kind of weird. But I would read, it's not abandonment, I just say water use reduction in the title.
The title is tied to the regular title from that section of the ordinance. And petitioner claiming a reduced water supply will be considered unofficial evidence of reduced water supply. Could you repeat what you wanted to change, Roger?
Yeah, so I said a petitioner claiming a reduced water supply will be considered prima facie evidence a reduction has occurred. Period.
That work for board members?
2:1-111.
This was their language.
You know, 2:1-111 and 2:1-112 is just, is what?
Abandonment.
Abandonment, we moved the bulk of the abandonment language. Except for this one subsection, because Seth like to make these with the tribes had a comment about it. And so we wanted to hold it back until we got clarification. And that help?
Just so that's the case, if just a minor, I'm not sure what language we change it to, that says petitioner claiming, or just, isn't it the word using the phrase claiming, is that the most appropriate phrase? Maybe I'm being too picky. They're not claiming anything.
Hill climbing,
Alleging.
alleging.
If that's not a problem, otherwise, I don't care, I just sounds like. Just don't want it to get confused with filing a claim. That's all.
All right, good to go, board? Great,
So can I make a type of graphical comment?
of course.
Just before it goes out to the public, when you're citing the ordinance, some places you have the section sign, other places you don't have the section sign. As you go through the document, just be consistent one way or the other.
Yeah.
And just say do it now.
All right,
Just
under,
very conscientious.
under 22-101 sub 2, this is totally new, for you. And, I have provided the board, 2 options for their consideration for a replacement point of diversion. And this is for a more of a minor point of diversion change, or somebody's just replacing one, not something like going to a new source or significantly improving their water supply. Option 1 is a notice so that the water user can just go remove their point of diversion and file a form 644F with our office 60 days after the completion. And option 2 is a request, which would be that they needed to file something in advance and get approval before replacing a surface water point of diversion. This does not have anything to do with wells. Also, I should make that clarification. This is really exclusive to surface water. As a quick other reminder, normally when you do a point of diversion, it could change, it gets you into a full blown change authorization. This is a much abbreviated option for folks who just have a legitimate logistic reason. They just need to move their point of diversion. This process is, there is a process like this in the rest of the state, and it tracks more of the option 1, which is a notice. But a lot of the things that we tend to do here, we do not opt. We really only have 2 noticed options, and that's for replacement wells and redundant wells. Most of the rest of all of our business is a pre-file request.
Administratively, for your office, what's the difference between the 2?
Option 2 gives us a chance to prevent somebody from moving a point of diversion in a way that would then force our hand to require a full-blown change authorization because they didn't understand the sideboards of a replacement point of diversion as well as we probably do.
What are the sideboards?
The change can't result in some huge increase to access to water supply or cut off another water user. The form itself, which we have, we did offer you some drafts in the last meeting, it's got things like if you move your point of diversion upstream past any other diverters, then you have to get signed authorization from those,
So the form has
you know.
a list of those sites.
Yeah, and if you go forward with one of these options and it gets back in the 15-day period, I'll get a bundle, you know, you'll have to form with it also, and you'll be able to, if you decide you wanted to. Say it goes out for 15-day notice and there's no significant changes, you want to adopt it, you'll have the form there at that time as well, so you can get back.
So functionally, what's the difference between the two options?
Well, one, people just go move their point of diversion and tell us afterwards.
So they file a they do the diversion and then they file, this is what I did.
Yep, that's a notice.
Okay,
To
the other one,
do the request
okay,
means you need to come in and get authorization from us to move your point of diversion. So you tell us in advance what point of diversion, to what water right, on what source, and we look at it now, and we do the
So-
evaluation.
as engineer, which one do you prefer
Two,
and why?
so that if somebody, makes a change and they thought, oh, I could just put it on this other creek. Cause they didn't read the form right, or something like that. Now we're in a real problem. They're gonna have to go move it. They're gonna have to deconstruct whatever they did, and I would prefer to interact with them before they had done any
Well,
constructing.
number one allows them a cheat and retreat. And number two says that you can't do that.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. But I thought you might want to have both options because the state does do option one as a notice and, so, you know, that's trying to give you a choice.
But I mean, just curious, it's interesting, they do number one. Do they have both sideboards and what's allowed?
Yeah, their form has got sideboards on what's allowed.
Probably a lot more detail.
Yeah, our form has, at least as much detail as the state form does. Yep. And very similar in nature.
Okay, which one you leaning toward?
Oh, one more question. Is this a real problem? This-
Yeah, we got people that we know need to have this option.
So they've gone already moved their.
No, they're asking in advance.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Is it a
Right.
problem? You're running into people just moving their diversion
Oh.
and then coming back and says, by the way, this is what I did.
If we haven't had anybody come in and tell us that they moved their diversion. We have had people ask us
Because
if they can move their diversion and what the process is. And we have identified that the ordinance doesn't have a good process, not an expedited process like this. Replacement for the diversion. And so this is, I think, this will functionally improve, some options for, water users.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And this is also something that DNRC has kind of molded in their permit and change procedures. So just to keep in mind for the two board members who are gonna be sitting on the work group, this is something that would need to be funneled into those WMPs that essentially come out, so. That's the section that we're working on, it's just the very first thing that's gonna be put in.
What's the second thing? We have another item in there, but, yeah. That's why it's only the change.
And just for completeness, the option two, actually language goes on to the next page, so just so you know, see it all. Hey, where are you leaning? Two. Two, option. Option two.
All right, read good enough for me to change any specifics?
Actually, I did have something.
Okay.
On option two, it says, down at the bottom, it says, oh, he at their discretion may, I think that's duplicative, I would just strike at their discretion.
Strict it,
That's the only comment I had.
all right. Thank you.
So, what this is. Into discussion, any more discussion? Public comment, any public, no public, yeah.
Just kind of like, yeah, we're doing all this, putting all this together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice. Appreciate it.
Yeah, much appreciated, so. Public comment before, so I guess the next thing is we want to move this to. Board action to, send these out for 15-day public comment. So the. Current public comment, any public online that wanna comment on what we just discussed?
No public comment.
No public online, no public in the audience, so, if you're ready. Ethan or Haley, anything else we need to consider before we put these out?
If you wanna give them an entry online. Their rule,
I was gonna let him get through this one because that's a separate action item.
no, for comment.
Okay. Board members, if you're ready, we'll put this out for public comment, need some action on it.
So the only question I have is this, Form 644 F,
Yeah,
have we seen that?
you did have it at your last meeting.
But don't we have to approve those? Did we?
We don't want you to approve the form until the policy goes forward. And then,
After public review.
yeah, because I don't want the form to go live until we've got authorization of the policy. We have actually made that mistake before. This is me not making that mistake again.
But you have to,
We do, yeah, it's a good form, and you'll get the full Monty on the form.
you want to see the draft of it?
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve sections of WPMP as corrected for 15-day public comment.
Motion by George,
I'll second.
second by Georgia, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're approved, all right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Now, if you'll allow me, Mr. Chairman, to drag you a little bit backwards for a second.
Oh, no,
I know.
where are we going?
Mr. Chairman, if we could back up under, item 3.2, the deleted section. And just a quick revisit, we were able to confirm at break that administrative rule action has already occurred, and so they have stricken the language from the DEQ administrative rules that our policies are, we're addressing. I did make a note that some folks were interested in getting copies of the administrative rule action. That is 100 pages. And I would like some, I'm gonna give you another option, maybe like now that we know that it has, that we firmed it up and Haley's taking a look at it as well. You know, if you want to get this clean up, move forward, because I'm always trying to get us with the clean policies. So sorry to bring it up again, but if that makes a difference about the, you know, the option table, I wanted to give you another bite of that apple.
You're asking us if we want to go ahead and delete section 10-104.
Put it out for a 15-day
Okay.
notice to delete that section, just because process oriented, we have, you know, that's the.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, was that the only thing so you said Haley looked at it, Haley, you read all 100 pages already?
No, there's no need to read the 100 pages. I mean, I can forward the link that Ethan sent it, they have a little blurb on it, basically saying that the department will no longer require a predetermination letter from the DNRC for that, and that's essentially what those were based off of, so.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there any reason we can't go backwards here and since we in the agenda?
It was noticed on the agenda as a potential action item, so I think it's fine in terms of there was notice available to the public.
I mean, in terms of meeting protocol, I can do that. Whatever, we're good. Since we hadn't already taken action on it, so, what do you wishes?
Do it.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, public comment for the record. No public in the audience, no public online, correct?
No problem.
No public for the record to comment, so. We would need action to put this out for 15-day public comment.
Okay, I'll make a motion to remove WPNP 10-104 water right verification for DEQ subdivisions from the manual.
And just put that out for
Yeah.
15-day public comment. Motion by Roger,
I'll second.
second by Ken. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Done. Done.
Thank you, board.
Budget.
So we met with Greg Spar last Tuesday.
Yeah, how'd that go?
It went really good. So I'm sure Roger and Georgia have some feedback also, but I was very encouraged by the meeting. It sounds like we're on the right track with what we're doing. He did take me and show me a lot of the filing system he's doing and kind of, we got insight on what the audit is gonna look like. It is kind of clear that we have under budgeted for the audit, and so we have been encouraged to put out an RFP to solicit auditors and do a mid-level audit and learn from our first one and go from there. He suggested the starting point would be our 2025, which we're just wrapping up. And it sounds like it can take up to 8 months before we'd even start the audit process. And once it's started, it can take 6 months. So this isn't a simple process. So it costs us a lot more money. But I guess the sooner we start it, more likely we'll be able to get it going. The RFP is kind of the key to starting that right now, because we've asked for bids from a couple companies, and we haven't heard anything. So a lot of them are booked up, really busy. So he also suggested, once we get one too, to, maybe work with them for several years. And do it on a regular annual basis for 3 to 5 years was his suggestion. So we also had a budget meeting this morning.
Before you go there,
Okay.
so Georgia summarize stuff to maybe do you want to add anything to our meeting with Greg Spar?
Yeah, maybe just a few things, although Rhonda, I think you did a great
Yeah.
job of hitting highlights there. Clayton, first of all, thanks for referring us to him. I learned a lot from Greg, and I could see why you made that referral. I asked him what constituted a successful audit. And I thought that was a really interesting response. So he said a successful audit results in no findings. An audit is also successful if it provides guidance on how much oversight is needed to make financial requests to funders. I thought that was particularly insightful. He also suggested that an audit would give us as a board and as an office and staff a determination of what the strengths and weaknesses are in our financial processes, and we make adjustments as we need to in terms of what kind of supporting data is needed. He highly recommended we do our audit based upon our own initiative rather than being requested to do one by the charter of the state. He also mentioned you know, it was interesting, we got two different answers. I asked about the workload because once this process starts, it puts additional work on Rhonda. And he said, oh, it's not that much work. You know, if you're doing your processes, everybody's doing the job, it's not that big a deal. Of course, he's in charge of a department where he has lots of people working and doing these things. Tina chimed in and shared that no, it actually is a lot of additional work because you have to upload all these
Yes.
documents. So just to make everybody aware of that, this is gonna be extra work for Rhonda, and we'll need to make plans for that. You've already touched on selecting an auditor and the timeline and getting one. I guess the only other big point that I would make here is he really emphasized the need for ongoing training. That we need to develop a financial process, standard operating procedure. And that as our board office grows, there's the need for additional training, not just for Rhonda, but for everybody. Like if you're going to submit a travel plan and you have to turn in receipts, it's just good that everybody knows why you have to do that. And it's just, it's not Rhonda being a meanie going, where's those receipts? But there's a reason why, and it helps if there's a team approach to it. So from a budget standpoint, we need to allocate funds toward that. How much, I don't know, but that's something we can find out. But again, coming back to that training or planning part, he said we need to develop a SMART plan. A 2 to 5 year work plan that includes SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. So that we have a real path on getting to those goals. We can identify the obstacles to meeting those goals. You know, and how do we circumvent them or overcome them? Because that would likely result in another budget expense, right? So those were the big takeaways. And he thought we could negotiate with Glacier State Bank to get a better rate of return on the funds that go into these short-term accounts. We're currently at 1.6.
1.5.
1.5, and he said, you should be in the 3s. So
Right.
that makes a difference.
Yeah, right.
So just add a couple of other little items. He did also give us a template for an RFP for soliciting and accounting firms, and he gave us 3 names of firms to send this RFP to. Rhonda's already taken that template and done a draft, so we haven't had time to review it, but maybe at the next board meeting, we'll be there to give a draft of our RFP for getting this audit done, so that'd be great. Couple other items that he really pounded on with this audit is we need to have all of our receipts categorized and available, so we still are compiling that, but it was, he told us that was critical, or else that would be a red flag in the audit.
Mhm.
So,
It's a finding,
yeah,
and you don't want findings.
well, my findings, yeah.
I think, when he said, successful audit is to have no findings, I think that's probably a highly desirable, perfect audit situation,
That's not.
but it rarely happens. I think in all the years that I worked with tribal government, I think they might have had 2 or 3 years where they had no findings. Almost always had findings. But what they were just, you know, corrective things. They give us information about, you know, maybe this process for receipts, or this process for travel, or this process for,
Exactly.
you know, bookkeeping, maybe just make these adjustments, and next time when we do that, and they do an annual. We probably won't do an annual, that would be good to get one done, so we can get on that path. So even if we have findings, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not successful. In fact, I suspect we're gonna get findings, especially for things like, you know, the first time around, receipts, but after we've done it, we built. A couple years down the road, I think things are gonna be even better.
Yeah, I think that's what I took probably the most from that meeting with them is that an audit is not a punitive thing. It is a tool that helps you learn how to do it better each time. Each iteration you improve.
And I think the other thing he mentioned too is we need to develop WPNPs for the financial end of things. And wasn't he gonna send us some of theirs?
No, Tina was gonna give us.
That's right.
A set, so to work with, so
Yeah,
Start with, yeah, good.
Yeah. to start with and get that, because I guess that's one of the things that is required in documentation that all the auditors request is what your PMPs are. So they
Yeah.
balance what you're doing off of your PMPs.
Yeah, he did emphasize that, didn't he? He's like, don't start the audit till you get that in place first.
Right.
We have to have that standard operating procedure for the auditor to check against, otherwise there's no measurement tool.
Yeah, the closest thing we have are just the standard accounting practices that our accountant follows and that your office follows, but
Right,
yeah. So to that end, is she going to provide us with something?
she's got a standard format, and she's gonna work with us on getting ours done.
Okay,
Yep,
well, as soon as, or as you make progress on that, keep us posted
absolutely.
and if we handle it like we handle all the other policies and procedures, we probably need to go out for public comment or.
Yeah, so I mean, just to clarify this. The WPMPs are procedures and policies based on the ordinance for technical, staff,
Yeah,
situations. These would be more akin to like a attachment to the bylaws of the board. Because the board already has a funding and financial responsibility listed within their bylaws. And so what we could do would be to add some sort of sentence in there saying, you know, a more descriptive financial policy, operating policy is attached, right? And then have it as a separate operating policy. Because it is for the board, it's not for the office, where the WPPs are strictly for the office.
yeah, good.
So I just wanted to clarify that.
That's fine, thank you, and therefore wouldn't necessarily mean that we have to go out to public comment.
It still would, our resolution number 4 that we have requires all procedures and policies to go out.
All right. We're good, thank you. Anything else?
that's it on our meeting with Riggs Farm, so we can talk about where we're at, our budget committee too.
Yeah.
I'll let you start, Ron.
So we met this morning, we worked through, a lot of our wages, potential wage increases. We're kind of just need a second run at it. I think that we're gonna be meeting again on the 18th before we get something to present to the board. I did notice that we do have an HR contract that might need to be added and some other things before it needs to go for final approval, but it's getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, we made some pretty good progress this morning, I think. We basically went through all of our line items in our budget, so what we're trying to get is then develop our fiscal year 2026 budget. And so it became apparent we need to add in some new line items too, because things have evolved a bit. We've got some additional expenses. So we're building through all of that. And then in our next meeting, we'll get into where we're at relative to all of our other accounts and all of these other long-term commitments that we're gonna have reserve funds for. So that's what we'll be working on at the next meeting. We do want to try and get this budget together for 2 reasons. One, so that we can get it to the funding agencies for the next fiscal year. And 2, then that will give us our position for if we need to go to the lending agencies and tell them we need more money. So, and that, then we wanted to talk to Haley about as far as when we need to have stuff ready for,
The 27th session,
yeah.
yeah.
Is that in October?
So I know like preliminary discussions typically will be like 2 falls out, so this fall. But then don't think they have to have an executive, like a preliminary executive budget submission until the spring of the year before, so next spring. I will confirm that with my contact I have within the governor's office, who works on the executive budget. That's how it would happen, right?
Okay.
So the state would essentially submit any sort of funding increases or movement of money within the executive budget. And that's how it would come before the governor's office and then in the session, it would be approved that way.
Okay.
So, and then the tribes would have to be in that conversation on whether they could contribute the same 50-50, right? So.
Okay, well, that sounds good, so then the other item on our budget too was we need to. Be thinking about a cost of living, increase for salaries, to build that into the 2026 budget. And so I know typically cost of living increases are tied off into the CPI. And I saw an article in the paper the other day where Whitefish was setting their budget, and they're usually pretty liberal. And they were, I think they said they were using the CPI, and the CPI is 2.5% is what I recall. And so, but other places are probably 3%. So we thought we should propose an across the board 3% salary adjustment for all the employees for fiscal year 2026.
Is that something we would do? When would we want to establish that?
Well, I guess I'd like to get that approved so that we can build it into our 2026 budget so that we can then have that, because we're already middle of September.
And can we do that by consensus right now and then take formal action on it at a later date? Because that's not actually an
Oh, it's
action
not-
item on the
no, it's
agenda.
not actually, yeah.
We also need, for our budget to be completed, we also need the PTO liability, the decision on that also.
Well, that's another item on the agenda,
Okay.
though. So, but this is a separate thing, so yeah, I guess you're right.
Just have that ready as an action item for the next meeting.
Yeah. That'd be a good idea.
But think about that. So at least initial thoughts on that? Yes, okay. All right. That should sail through and bring it up for action. All right. Maybe. So I'd say whatever other budget items that we need to take action on at that time, then should.
I think we're gonna have compensation too, so we'll have a few action items for the next meeting.
Okay,
Yeah,
very good. Anything else?
no, that's all I got.
Okay, I'm just checking time here, so it's 4:30, so we're just a tad bit ahead, but we were going to prioritize 4, which we just did, and 7. Can we jump to number 7 and then see what, after that, see how much time we have left to do everything?
Sounds good.
Sound okay? All right, item 7. That gets to the Mountain HR Consulting, let's see.
Sure, the only, edit that I had to this document, and this was talked about when we spoke with Sophie and she recognized it too, was just the date that the agreement should begin. She sent it in August, so the date was August 15th, 2025, and so my suggestion would be to just, I think she said she was on vacation too for this week, so.
Till the 10th, she said.
Yeah, so my recommendation would be to change it to September 15th, 2025, which is next Monday. I think that would give her enough time to sign it if we were to send this electronically to her.
Okay, all right. Board members want to take a quick final look at this, so I think where we're at is we've had enough discussion on this, if we're going to move forward, I think we are, wanting to take action to approve this contract and send it back to her, is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, you can approve with that change and
Okay.
signatures.
So I did have some questions.
Yes, Ken.
On number 5. Confidentiality, I mean, does that include the consultant from providing information to the tribes or the state? Or the federal government, if they want to know what we're doing? Or what the consultant's doing for us?
That's a good question.
I don't see it as necessarily prohibiting a general conversation about if the state or tribe were to ask, you know, what's this mountain HR doing? I see it more as, to keep specific staff names, you know, out of that conversation. Those types of things,
Okay.
yeah.
Outside parties.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And then on number 7, just for the record, I'm still uncomfortable with the indemnification clauses, but you wrote an opinion in the beginning, and so that's all I'm gonna say.
No, I'm not a huge fan of them either, but they're pretty much standard
Well, I
in
know.
every single contract.
Yeah. Exactly.
Those are the comments I have. Oh, and it should be, instead of representative, probably Clayton's name.
And I think she just filled that in because she wasn't sure who would be signing, but yeah, we can easily change that to Clayton's name and chair.
But just because, tell me what your issue is with the indemnification?
Oh, it comes from my years with the federal government. It's basically you're obligating funds that may or may not have been appropriated. And the federal government actually has a federal law that prohibits that. And I don't know whether the state has one or not.
Well, what does this indemnification clause actually do then?
If there's like issues that arise, it essentially just means that we're responsible to essentially like defend. Sophie and her company. From lawsuits that could, arise from this particular agreement.
And anything she's gonna deal with would be internal here anyway, it'd be.
Correct, so for example, like, let's say there was an employee who just really didn't like what was going on here. By signing this agreement, we would essentially be responsible to defend it, you know, this contract.
It's our, yeah, it's our business, yeah,
Yeah,
and she's just doing the work for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, questions?
This is like, 20,000 a year. How much is it?
It is, it listed on 18,600 for the year, because it's a 600 introductory fee and then 1,500 per month. So it comes out to 1,550 per month,
Well, it was like 200 round trip, $20 an hour.
if she comes on site, right?
I assume there would be some additional size tag,
Mhm.
figured about 20,000. Is that? Oh, you guys have talked the budget, and I have, today you did bring up some issues, so I'm trying to, not trying to be, like, be great to have this, is, how does that fit in the money situation?
I didn't hear the last one. It has the what?
Be great to have this, how's it fit into the money situation?
we, at least through our initial discussions, talked about the money that we have available for this. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're over budget when it comes to what we've been allotted, if we do the full build out. So we didn't do the full build out for 2025, and so we're wanting to do it for 2026. So there's 425,000 roughly that's gonna be pulled over. So if we wanna do that full build up, we're gonna be $250,000 over budget again, or because of that, you know, but we have that carryover money. So it really just depends on what the board wants to do going forward.
Well, and in addition to that, we've got a lot of funds that we haven't touched either.
Correct.
So there's money in our fees that we just use as a, haven't touched. We have some money left over in the one-time allotment,
Yes.
$185,000.
Yes,
And there was some money somewhere else too, I can't remember. So we have the money.
And that was my understanding, so, ready for public comment? Such that it is?
Yeah.
Okay, any public, no public physically in the audience, anybody online? On the record, no public to comment, so we'll move on with our action on this. To approve this HR contract. Anybody want to make the motion?
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve the HR Mountain Consulting Agreement with the amendments as noted, specifically for the start date, correct? And Clayton's signature.
Motion by Georgia,
Second.
second by Ken. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are approved. All right. Good.
So there won't be another board meeting before this goes into effect, so will she just, it'll be next week, she will just start contacting us then, is that the assumption?
Yeah, I don't know, I think we're gonna get the contract to her, and I think we were going to have a couple people start by making contact with her and try to get this ball rolling, so it's not like, you know, Monday morning, she started making phone calls, but she'll be available, so if you have questions, I would say just, let's let our contacts make contact with her, start without some initial protocols, and then we'll make sure everybody's aware. And go from there. Sound fair? All right. All right. Very good.
I guess I want to follow up. I think that's a really good question. When I spoke to Sophie, she indicated the first step would be in-person, face-to-face visits with staff. I want to make sure that does not disrupt the office. So Ethan, would you like her to coordinate times and things with you? Office coverage, that kind of thing. How would you like to see this roll out so it does not disrupt anything?
It would be great if she could, tell me what she needs, like what she's looking for, and then, I can help her coordinate that with our coverage and, you know, she might, if she's looking to meet with everybody all at once at some point versus individual meetings, just let her tell me what she wants.
Okay.
I'll help her, sort it out. Let's get there, get scheduled.
And just a suggestion, when we're talking to her initially, is maybe trying to figure out those protocols and stuff. Maybe ask if she would, give us sort of a general plan for how she would like to. Because I think she's gonna want to spend some time looking at policies, or personnel policies, whatever exists right now. And the other policies we have that she might have questions about. And then if we have sort of an agreement working agreement on how she wants to proceed, then we can work with her on that, rather than just opening the door.
Right.
Yeah.
Then one other thing too, she'll probably Well, it sounded like she was gonna interview everybody individually. And so probably need to be thinking about whose office or what office would be available so they can close the door and have a conversation, you know?
It's just,
I,
maybe go off-site.
yeah, I'm not sure that it's possible to have a true private conversations, but I'm really not.
Not in
You know,
this-
I mean, I had my phone sitting over there with the radio playing, and I'm like in that office back there, and like, oh, I can hear it from there. I mean, that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's a great thing to know.
They're really
Yeah.
bad.
That's a fair point. And
So I think that there's gonna be any of that private conversations, it would either be offsite or the
Okay.
day.
I agree.
Well,
We're
we,
gonna go next door.
we secured a room for our executive sessions across the street. So maybe as we're preparing the plan, we talk to them about using that, allowing her and staff to use that as, you know, to schedule that and use that as needed. They've been good with us so far, so we just keep working with them and see what happens. I think that should work. Or there's a great big room, empty room right next door. You know, just open the door and just say, well, we're gonna check it out. We wanna check it out for a couple days.
Yeah, it smells like onions across the street. I've been there today, and we've been cooking onions or something.
Oh, man.
Peeling onions, yeah.
Last year it was a Thai food smell, you'd open the door and you could instantly get hungry, but.
So I was in there for about 10-15 minutes, my eyes were burning, and I didn't say anything, because I thought it was just me. I was the same way.
Yeah. All right, that took care of those two priority items we wanted to talk about. So, any more on the Jocko Valley field trip? Anything on the Jocko Valley field trip? You want to highlight that? Come on.
I'd just like to say that you were missed.
I doubt that very much, but I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, there's probably things I haven't seen because I haven't been there in a while, but I know. And I've been up to all those locations over the years. And even longer for the North Fork, yeah. But, yeah. Well, especially now that they're starting to build on the project.
It was impressive.
Yeah, it was totally.
Yeah,
Had you been up there before?
No, and I couldn't think of a better word than impressive.
Aw.
I've been on a lot of construction sites and, yeah, it's something.
yeah,
It's big.
Yeah, we got to see one that was completed, which was the K Canal Headworks. Which is really amazing.
Mhm.
And then we went up to the, I guess where they're gonna build the new S Works. Head gates and control structures,
Yeah.
that was just starting. They're doing everything from building soldier pile walls and piling to rerouting the channel.
yeah.
It's a bank stabilization, that was
Yeah.
pretty good direct.
It was, yeah.
It's
Maybe.
the fish.
They caught one,
Yeah, two
Two.
cutthroats.
at the K-Word.
Did you eat them?
I only do.
I'll take that home.
Yeah, that's always fun. Yeah.
Yeah, the biologist showed up when we were there.
Oh, yeah.
Netted one and
Oh, did they? Oh,
weighing it, tagging it,
Yeah,
and doing all that stuff.
yeah,
What's real interesting is when they get the pipeline finished,
yeah,
it'll be connected to that,
yeah.
K Canal Headworks where they can use a computer to access it and set
They're gonna
flows.
automate that. Oh, well, cool.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah. Well, that gets to another element of that is the pipeline and what it's gonna do to that ditch. And what it's gonna do to all drainage that ditch provided over the years. That's gonna come into play with.
A lot of shallow wells.
Yeah, with people here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did get to go to the second stop was the pipeline, where they were laying the pipe and looked at the two different contractors. So that was big pipe, so it's pretty cool. All all gonna be pressure delivery, 60 PSI. That's amazing. So,
Taking pictures.
I got a few, I see.
Yeah. We'll be blowing sprinkler heads.
Probably so. And they got PRVs built in too, so.
Our measurements that we did on the Cape Canaveral reaches showed that there was quite a bit of loss in the short reach.
Yeah,
And what we can say was supposedly going to go back into the Joppa River.
yeah, fisheries. Yeah. Cool,
Yeah, it is, but
yeah. And you didn't make it either? I didn't, yeah, I didn't go, yeah. Anything else? Number 6, priority work committee and strategic planning updates. Is there anything on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. It's, what, 22.
All right, let's. So, we met with the, priority working group. Kind of interplay with a little bit of strategic planning that, resulted in us getting some updates, kind of going forward. And what we've got is we, kind of took a look at where things were at in June of 24. And, you know, this is a list of all of our water right types and the pending work. And you'll see like a whole bunch of this is unbegun and 0% complete and a lot of blank spots in here. And then when we look at our updates here to August of 2025, you'll see a much more complete arrangement for all of our different water right process types. And really what this spreadsheet does is we start off, these are the main water right types, they all have a number. And this is like how we describe them, and you'll see we've got the registration certificates and the appropriations and the change, and those are in the yellow because they're exciting, and then get down to the pending. And then I've got all these deadline extension requests and information, informal water use complaints, and none of this stuff was done when we took this snapshot back in, in June of 24. Now what you see is a really much more developed water right administration that's, going forward. We learned, a few of these things we didn't need them, so we actually created some stuff and then eliminated it, which kind of like what was going on with that policy that we just moved to a 15-day notice and got water. Nope, right, yep. That's right here, we've got question mark and it needs to go. So, you see, in yellow, we've got the groundwater management area petition. We've got some emergency fire, groundwater wells, and then a wetland protected right. This is kind of the bread and butter of what the office, does in terms of just the straight water rights work. And then we've got these other, categories. I don't know how to get rid of this. Oh, yeah, dude. And so do we have a form? Where are we at with virus? This has been a huge amount of work that's gone into this. And so when we started these, some of this stuff was at 0. And here we've got a lot of full functionality, components. Do we have our reports in place? do we have water policies and procedures in place, right? Some of these are still pending, some of the stuff that you worked on today will be moving, the ball on the column F. Here we've got hearings and appeals, got really a lot of, good work has gone into those, sections, not all of them are needed, but, got your hearings and appeals, a lot of completed sections there. Still got quite a bit of work to do in scans and records, which you've heard me talk about a little bit. And, we keep track of letter templates and decision documents, because those are important to us. It takes a lot of people time to get our decision documents, done so that we can go from one to the other. But what I really just wanted to take a moment is to, stand back and look at this again. Here's where we were in June of 24 with so many gaps and blanks. And then, here on our water rights front, we've really come, as an organization, we've come huge, in my opinion, quite a bit.
Yeah, building cars was flying down the road, right? Good job.
Yeah, well, it's great. The priority working group, of course, has some focus. They wanted to get us laser focused on what are the next big priorities, right? And so, this is where we had left things, back in June of 24. And, that got done. That got, the flathead system compact water use is done. We even issued one objection to a water right application that's completed. The enforcement and complaints section, that's all handled. And so that brings us, kind of over to our new, August 25th, priorities, as steered by, I forgot to mention, it's George and Roger who are the four members on the priority, setting, group. So, this is what we've done, kind of expanded the, into some of these subcategories a little bit to try to iron out exactly what all the big and major priorities are. And, you see that we end up with the 1As here, the change authorization and the new appropriations for municipal major subdivisions and, commercial, industrial, et cetera. And we've got, 1Bs and Cs, irrigation and wetlands, got a 2B down here, change authorization, for, certain kinds of, existing rights, but change uses. We think that the mitigation had a priority in the changes so that, if a new appropriation gets moved and they need to have water, they can change an existing water right to mitigation. So that those are kind of woven together there. The third big item that's still here, and we all know it's hanging out there, is the petition for groundwater management area. Trying to clarify, I think there's going to be some that are supply based and some that are thermal based. With the information that we've gotten. And so, I just on this front, wanted to kind of share a little snapshot of these. I hope to continue to develop this into maybe a little bit of a report for you guys. It has some narrative with it. Some of the other strategic aspects that we've worked on is probably over here in the OE positions where we got the different positions, and we're working into special assignments to try to get everybody set and moving forward on the kind of specific works that we need from IT, which we got that as a clarification, breaks is, got that down here. But we, kind of go through here and try to define special assignments that we've got, and I was in my vision, we've got down here, we get into the different, kind of day-to-day activities and where everybody's at in terms of their roles with the day-to-day operations for the water rights processing, where we've got registrations, we've got allowances, got these, there's water rights, which would be something like a flathead system compact water right, a noticed water rights, something that has a more formal decision and circumstances around it. Obviously, we've got some question marks in here still, as well, some office minutes. This just to kind of get an idea of, I noticed you guys have been more interested in the employee spotlight. And, this is kind of how things have been arranged and, how most of our work gets done. This was an overview, moving this tool forward a little bit. We don't always have time to do as good a job documenting things, but we have got some snapshots here. With that,
Roger, George, anything to add? Have they given any indication when the groundwater applications might be coming
well,
forward?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that they probably would like to know what is gonna happen with some of the permit and change stuff before they know for sure what they want to do with the groundwater management areas, but I think that probably from, I'll just say if I was there, I would want to know, be nice to know what the ramifications are. If an area changes in terms of, water availability for allowances, what does that mean? And if at present, because the policies are underdeveloped, and will be substantial on on how it affects next steps for permitting and changes and mitigation. That's probably thinking about that. Which is why those are all interconnected. Anyway,
That's- Yeah, I did ask Seth that yesterday, and I don't know that he said soon.
Yeah, you said that a year ago.
Yeah.
too, so.
Safe answer.
But they're getting
Yeah.
closer. Well, I know I haven't actually talked to them. I don't know where they're at with it. Maybe George knows, but I know that they had hired a contractor
Yeah.
to start preparing these models.
And we will be meeting with them again next week, or 2 weeks from now, so.
I think one of the things that did change though from that conversation, because I was also there as well, was that they are not particularly concerned if we have WPNPs existing or not. So soon is not hinging on whether there are policies in this office.
Yeah, they want to proceed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about, for them, it's about the resource. Yeah, what they'll do is get it in our hands and then it's in our plate, our table. Any other questions? So. Yeah, all right, thank you. So on the next item, just mostly to not overlook anything you've got, Ethan, but just in a matter of time here, really, if we could jump to 8-3 Sydney.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, I appreciate your time on this, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a pretty concise list. I wrote down what I found, in the week of August 18th through the 21st. And just kind of wrote down a summary of the bulleted list for that. I took 20 out of 23 phone calls, 9 out of 9 walk-ins, and I received 3 applications. My daily tasks are kind of like, I checked the mail, dropped off deposits to the bank, took the trash to the alley. And every day I update the tracking for water rights and traffic. I reviewed 160 DF, and concurred on it. I do a lot of post and pre-board stuff, which included that week, uploaded last meeting to YouTube with transcripts and timestamps, and added the video to the website. Created the meeting minutes, made another Zoom meeting, notified 2 newspapers at the next board meeting on 8/28. I did review over 260 DFs that week. I did attend 5 meetings, change of use applications, workflow, architect updates, present items, and workflow again. I created those 2 forms that you saw recently, the notice of replacement form and the requested for replacement POD form. I do a lot of website management throughout my week. That week it included trying to fix the application tracking on the website, posted a memo to the website, edited the employment page, edited the public notice page, organized website folders, the share drive, checked for broken links, and I updated the plugins for that end of the website. And then I just did some troubleshooting and IT stuff for Outlook issues.
Very good, yeah, I've been on the website a few times and that looks good. Any other? And so, thank you. For future reference, maybe just focus on the larger projects. You know, which is fine, like especially if you're doing water rights forms and the website. Yeah, much appreciated. So any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'd like to just continue this with whoever's next on the list. So next time. Thank you. Anything else, Ethan? Number 8.
You've got your standard, water right reports, which Cindy probably forgot to put on the list.
I did put it on
Yes,
this.
okay, good.
As
Good,
an
good.
updated track.
Updating the tracking, but, you know, probably what I went over with the spreadsheet is sufficient for your waters update. And,
Well, just a question for the board. I know that this is good information unless you want to change that. I think as long as it's in our packet, I think that's probably adequate. I don't know if you want to continue verbal review of all these reports.
I think we could put it in the package and reserve our time for stuff we must.
Yeah, so I think it's good information, but it's probably just good to have in the packet for future reference.
And I'd say limit it to once a month. We don't need it every time.
Yeah,
sure.
sounds good. All right. So, item 9, maybe got there, Ethan. So there's something we want to try to get out to public comment. Is that what we're doing?
That's got a lot of, we need to postpone that one.
Postpone until next meeting?
Next meeting, yeah, that's
Okay.
gonna take some effort.
All right. Postpone. Try to make sure we get to it the next meeting then. All right. Speaking of next meetings. When do we want to meet then?
I'm available the 7th and the 9th, but not the 8th.
So, just a question. Was there a reason why there wasn't another board meeting this month? Since the beginning of the month, and there's like 3 weeks left.
Yeah,
I'm just going to, I mean, if you guys want to have another one this month, I suppose that's also an option. You're right, no, it's a 9.
I think,
What are we thinking, Ethan?
The reason is because there's a whole bunch of permit and change meetings that are stacked up on the week of the 22nd. There's 2 meetings, that are total of 6 hours, and then on the week of the 28th, there's another 2 meetings that are 6 hours, and I'm, yeah, I was trying to get a little. That's a lot of meeting, that's a lot of work for me to handle the permit to change stuff, so I was trying to kind of prioritize that. But,
Is there, comments?
So you're saying you don't wanna do it on the 7th or 9th later?
oh, God, I'm saying the 7th, 8th and 9th. Are numbers, those are dates that I put out here, but the reason I didn't put one down for the second half of September was because we had all these other policy work meetings.
Okay, that's fine, because I'm gonna probably be tied up.
Okay,
Picking grapes or something. Yeah. Any other thoughts about meeting in September? I mean, unless there's some reason to have a meeting, we could have a short one to address some specific thing if you need to. Otherwise, we're off in October.
I would like to move budget stuff along. That's just my personal take on it, but you know, the PTO policies and different things that we need to have done in the budget, the longer we put it off, the farther the 2027 budget gets away. And I would like to see us continue to work on that project. We are having a budget committee meeting on the 18th. And if we had stuff that we could take from that meeting and present to the board for approval, then that gets us closer to getting the 2026 budget done and the 2027 after that. That's my take,
What time is that meeting?
at 1 p.m. on the 18th.
So that would suggest a possible meeting the week of the 22nd.
For a single issue for budget, is that something we could do?
We could do that and maybe these personnel policies.
Yeah.
Just trying to think how we could have a meeting that didn't burden the staff.
Yeah, so if we did something with week of the 22nd, how does that? What's the week of the 22nd looking like for you, Ethan?
That's the busy week.
so, yeah, we're supposed to finalize stuff with Losai, and we got two permit change meetings. Which I mean, even though meetings are there, there's work that'll happen after, leading up to and after for winter,
So Georgia, you're only available on Tuesdays, I think.
Yeah, that's my free day
So,
this quarter.
you know, we could have it on the 23rd. Would that be a possibility, just to have a short meeting or something? I mean, we only budget and this policy thing.
Yeah, the board has had like an hour Zoom meeting over that kind of like lunchtime period before for that, when we were looking at funding agreements and such, so the board has done it before. Or it's just been all Zoom.
Monday's out for you?
Yeah, Monday's a full day for me on campus.
So short meeting and potentially short meeting on 23rd.
I could do Thursday and the later afternoon, like 1:30. I'm usually pretty. If that's better for folks. I teach a lab till 12:20, so it just depends on how quickly I can get everything cleaned up.
Oh, I'm good Tuesday, or I could do Thursday if necessary.
I can do either of those.
Limit it to 2 hours. Might not take 2 hours, but limited to 2 hours. 1 o'clock on the 23rd.
Well, the other item we gotta get on that agenda is that, well, that'd be part of the budget, the salary thing too.
Yeah, budgets, so budget
I have notes here, PTO bank, 3% COLA, board compensation for action items for next
Yeah,
meeting.
that'd be good, yeah.
Okay. We'll do that and then these personnel policies.
Yeah.
Okay, $2 enough. 23rd at 1. Yes. Um. No, let's squeeze some things in, Nathan, but we'll try to get through a couple hour section there. Will that work?
Sure.
How about October? You guys want to look into October or no?
I'm free on the seventh.
I think Ken said 7 or 9, 7. Yeah, 7th is good.
Mhm.
So shoot for the 7th, all right.
Okay.
And then, the September 23rd and October 7th. Next two. And for the 7th, you want to do the 12th to 5 again? Make it a session at 12
We need it.
if we need it. All right, Georgia, anything else? Yeah.
Nope. Nope.
Good. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Ken, second by
Ken.
Roger, all fair side.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?